Chapter 1230. In the end, Immortal Jinyuan one-sidedly crushed the competition between several parties. Audiobook used his spirit sword to break open the door of the inspection van. When he saw that Cowan had already fainted, he didn't think too much about it as he directly picked him up and sprinted 100 meters. He opened the back of the Wuling Hongguang and threw the man inside before driving away as fast as he could. Things had progressed more smoothly than Audiobook had imagined. His next step was to drive to Battle Sect, whose mountain gate was outside Songhai City. At the moment, Battle Sect was a relatively safe place. Even if someone wanted to pay a visit, it wouldn't be that easy. Audiobook had already decided to pry open Cowan's mouth before anyone tracked him down. Audiobook walked for about 5 or 6 minutes before the gravity suppression Immortal Jinyuan had set up in front of the toll station was unlocked. With the power of a venerated immortal, you could do whatever you wanted. The 3 groups of people got up from the ground one after another. Their faces were plastered with gravel and some of them had blood stains on them. All of them were covered in dirt, and felt a little dizzy. Being suppressed by gravity for a long time would block blood flow, so the first thing they felt after getting up was numbness in their legs. More than 40 people got up from the ground, all of them wearing night clothes. Unable to tell friend from foe in the dazzling divine pool, they directly circled the inspection van. "Who the hell are you? Who are you?" The 3 groups of people asked each other questions as they took out the magic weapons in their hands and threatened each other. Although they were all speaking Mandarin, it was clear that they had different accents, which made the scene even more chaotic. "Everyone, the person we wanted to rob was snatched away by the other group. If we start an internal strife now, won't the 4th group laugh at us?" the representative of one group suddenly said at that moment. "That's right. Brothers, I also think it's inappropriate for us to stand here, and the police will be here soon. There's no harm in the 3 of us chasing after them, it'll depend on our own abilities." "All right. Then shall we retreat?" "How?" "Go back to where you came from." The 40 or so people hit it off and scattered in the direction of the previous ambush. The person they wanted to rob had been snatched away by someone else. Since they didn't know the other party's background, these groups of people said they were going to chase after them, but in fact, they still had to ask for instructions before taking action. After the failure of the operation, the burly men in black who had fallen from the sky were quickly picked up by an armed helicopter. A group of people discussed the follow-up plan on the helicopter. The leader of the team took off his mask, revealing his face. Just like Keon, he was a Western cultivator. He had dark blue eyes, a high nose bridge, and long sideburns. He was assimilating with a communication ball. They were from the SBP Foundation. The team leader spoke to Judgment in fluent Mandarin. They were all capable operatives of the SBP Foundation in Huaxiao Nation. "Lord Judge, I'm very sorry. The operation has failed. There were a total of 3 groups of people who snatched it from us. Snek deserves to die. I already know about this. It's not your fault." The black shadow on the other end of the communication ball said, "Furthermore, I already know that of the 3 groups, one is from Huaguo Water Curtain Group, one is from Huaxiao Alliance General Alliance, and the last one might be from Battle Sect. The War Sect actually has such a powerful expert?" Snake's heart trembled. "Don't panic, I will immediately send someone to support you. You just need to follow the instructions I'll give you later and wait at the designated coordinates." "Yes." Snake nodded. At this point, the call between the 2 of them was cut off. On the edge of a cliff in Mixiao Nation's lonely forest, in front of an ancient castle bathed in moonlight, the black-cloaked owner of the castle stood on the edge of the cliff and slowly stretched out his arms to embrace the moon, praying devoutly to the Great Void in the name of Judgment. "Great Lord of the Void. Thank the Lord for your salvation. I beseech the Lord to save the people of the Void and restart the Void. We, the people of the Void who are lurking here, will surely offer the Lord our most sincere gift of life." After the prayer, the owner of the cloak returned to the castle. The old woman standing silently by the door took off the owner's cloak and hung it on a hanger. The owner of the castle finally revealed his deathly pale face, devoid of all blood. In front of a gorgeous long dining table, 2 tall candlesticks gave off light, and the old woman pushed a dining cart. "Lord Bai, the tonic is ready. Please enjoy." The young man coughed. He scooped up a spoonful of red medicinal soup and leaned close to savor its aroma. It was as if that wonderful feeling could make him forget all his troubles for a short period of time, forget his past, and even for a moment, forget that young man whom he hated to the core. For countless nights, that pair of dead fish eyes had been tormenting him like a nightmare. Before drinking the soup, the young man glanced at the old woman out of the corner of his eye. "My name is Su Bai, and I am a citizen of the void. The Baiju of the past has nothing to do with me anymore." Yes, this old servant will remember. Only then did the old woman realize that she had made a slip of the tongue. After bowing, she hurriedly pushed the dining cart away. As the young man had said, the great void had given him a third life, which had been given to him by a white-haired young man whose face couldn't be seen clearly. Unfortunately, that young man hadn't put him in an important position. He had once been a lord, but after he was resurrected, Baiju realized that he was worse than a dog. In extreme grief and indignation, Baiju chose to end his life. His third life had been bestowed upon him by the void. The void had given him everything he wanted, and had even helped him advance into a higher life form called Hollow Spirit. In the days that followed, he began to look for a host. Then, this Mr. Judgment of the SBP Foundation became the perfect host for him. As his hollow spirit body began to merge with Judgment, he took away everything that belonged to Judgment. Memories, realm, wealth, reputation. With the help of the void, he had regained all of these things that he had once lost. At that moment, he had changed his name to Su Bai. He was a devout citizen of the void. Furthermore, he was a higher life form than human cultivators. With the nourishment of the medicinal soup, it wouldn't take him more than a few days to completely adapt to Judgment's body. He was now confident that he could kill Wang Ling. But he didn't want to be in such a hurry. Letting a person die wasn't the greatest torture. The greatest torture was to make a person lose all the things they wanted. Su Bai had thought it through very thoroughly. What he wanted to take away was the peaceful life that Wang Ling yearned for the most. "Wang Ling, what are you going to do?" The young man put spoonful after spoonful of the red medicinal soup into his mouth and sneered. He had already finished praying in the darkness of the night. The great Lord of the Void was going to reopen the Void Gate and test the human world once again. P.S. Poll. Please guess how many slaps Wang Ling can take from Su Bai. A. 1-3B, 3-5C, 6-10. Chapter 1231. For a long time, people have been pursuing higher levels of evolution. This is also the reason why cultivators have been pursuing higher levels of cultivation. Countless cultivators pursue higher realms for strength, for longevity, and even more so for the pursuit of a higher form of life. Inside the Battle sect, Kun was holding a cup of hot coffee as he explained the situation that he knew. It seemed that he was going to talk about the origin of human beings and cultivation. But time was of the essence now, so Audiobook could only guide Keon from the side and let him choose the key points to answer. In order to win Keon's trust, Audiobook had even unlocked Keon's spirit shackles. But Keon knew very well that with that long-haired almighty here, it didn't make any difference whether he wore the shackles or not. "You didn't want to say anything before, why are you willing to say it now?" Audiobook was puzzled by Keon's sudden change. Keon looked at Audiobook. "The reason I joined the SBP Foundation was to help the human world develop more peacefully and orderly. The investigations I've conducted over the past few years have been based on this goal as well. I will only choose what I think is right. In fact, I was still hesitating when I was sent to the prison van, but after a few rounds of fighting, I immediately understood." "What do you understand?" "I understand. It's the right direction." Keon's voice gradually became deeper. "The Foundation has changed. It's no longer the Foundation I used to know. We exist to expose the truth. Now, in order to hide the truth, the Foundation is willing to pay the price of killing an investigator." "You mean that the burly men from the Foundation weren't here to kidnap you?" "Despite their disguises, I know them too. They are the Foundation's scavengers. The duty of the scavengers is to assist in the investigation. They will cooperate with the investigators to carry out specific tasks. For example, sometimes we need to kidnap a specific insider in order to investigate something. At the same time, in order to protect the identity of the insider, we will fake their suicide so that we can take the real person away for investigation. In this way, in the eyes of the outside world, this person was already dead. But in fact, once we have enough evidence, this dead person will come back as a key witness. So, the scavenger's mission was to help you fake a suicide? You can think of it that way. Keon nodded. Holding his coffee cup, he laughed bitterly. But I don't know when the scavengers started to change. The Foundation, which originally exposed the truth, became the lackeys of some tycoons. They sent investigators to gather all the evidence and witnesses, and then sent the scavengers to destroy them all. Truly flawless. Audiobook and sighed. When did they become like this, and when they became like this? A long time ago. In my memory, it seemed to have started 20 years ago. They had already started to rot 20 years ago. It's just that I didn't have any concrete evidence. Keon frowned as if he was trying hard to recall the details of the past few decades. From the moment my first friend who was also an investigator died, I already had my suspicions. Time. Scavenger. Time. Speaking up to this point, Keon lowered his head and cast a simple impression spell to project the appearance of a blue-eyed foreigner on paper. This man is called Snake, the leader of the scavengers. Maybe even he doesn't know, but I've been paying attention to him ever since my first investigator companion died. The moment he jumped out just now, I could clearly sense that he wanted to kill me. He's very strong. Your realm isn't too bad without the spirit shackles, right? Audiobook said. We're all elite selected and cultivated by the Foundation. Our realms aren't much different, but the focus of our cultivation is different. Scavengers are killing machines cultivated by the Foundation. As for us investigators, most of our focus is on cultivating perception type and support type spells. At this point, Audiobook already had a general idea of what had happened. Back in Songhai First Prison, Keon had refused to give in no matter what because he still had a glimmer of hope in the existence of the SBP Foundation. He firmly believed that the faith he had once firmly believed in wouldn't collapse so easily, but after killing 4 people halfway through, Keon instantly understood that the incomparably lofty foundation in his heart had already been completely destroyed. I chose your battle sect because you don't have any interest in the Foundation. Do you remember the other 2 people who intercepted us? You mean Huagua Water Curtain Group and the Central Alliance? If my inference is correct, they've probably already been infiltrated by the Foundation. Compare them. Only Battle Sect is at a lower risk, Keon said. Hearing this, Audiobook felt that the situation, which had already become clear, seemed to have become a little complicated again. The SBP Foundation has been established for so many years and enjoys a good reputation internationally. I can understand why the Central Alliance might be working with it, but what's going on with Huagua Water Curtain Group? Audiobook asked. I'm not particularly clear on this matter. I only heard a colleague mention files related to Huagua Water Curtain Group. It seems to have something to do with that female candidate for Huagua Water Curtain Group. Lotus Sun? Yes, that should be the name, but I don't know the specifics of the investigation. The expression on Keon's face was particularly complicated. Because the rumor is that this investigator also died at the hands of the scavengers, boom. At that moment, as they were talking, a huge explosion suddenly erupted outside Battle Sect's mountain gate. Grenade-throwing senior immortals True Venerate Hall also shook slightly with this huge tremor. Report a group of foreigners are preparing to attack the mountain. A Battle Sect disciple ran in a panic. It's the scavengers. Snake and the others are here. Keon became nervous. They clearly know that you have an expert keeping watch here, and won't act rashly unless they're fully prepared. Snake is very strong. He's definitely going to kill me. Don't panic. Audiobook tried to calm Keon down. He exchanged glances with Immortal Jinyuan, who was about to go out and take a look at the situation. In the end, another battle sect disciple ran in a panic at that moment. "Report the leader of the foreigners is dead." "Dead?" Audiobook was stupefied. Crispy Noodle's Dao monarch said it was a needle that came from afar like a shooting star and directly stabbed him to death, then flew off into the distance. Hearing this, Audiobook sucked in a cold breath. Were the villains nowadays so shameless? They didn't even have a chance to make an appearance and had died just like that? Chapter 1232. About 5 minutes ago, a group of foreigners had gathered outside Battle Sect's mountain gate. Their leader was none other than Snake, who was known as the SBP Foundation's scavenger team leader. In less than 2 hours, he had arrived at the location Su-Bai had specified and obtained a magic treasure known as the Void Magic Ball. Then, he had come here according to new instructions. Snake didn't know what this Lord Judgment wanted to do, but there was nothing wrong with following the Foundation's arrangements. A group of outsiders gathering in front of the mountain gate was definitely a sign of danger. Seeing this, the Battle Sect disciples in the sentry tower hurriedly reported the situation to their superiors. Very quickly, a stream of golden light rose from the heart of Battle Sect and descended from the sky in front of this group of scavengers. The powerful aura made the scavengers involuntarily take a few steps back. Snake stared at the young-looking boy in front of him with his dark blue eyes set in deeply sunken eye sockets. "We are here on the orders of the SBP Foundation. Please ask the person in charge of your sect to come out and return him to us." After saying this, Snake also tried to recall the origins of the person in front of him in his mind, but he found that he had no impression at all in his mind. Crispy Noodles didn't reply, and just stared quietly at Snake. According to Battle Sect's rules, anyone who provoked the mountain gate, Battle Sect would never make the first move. Seeing that the youngster was standing still, Snake looked a little impatient. "Aren't you going to ask the person in charge to come out? Or are you the person in charge here?" "I'm just a security guard," Crispy Noodles answered honestly. In reality, he had been assigned to many departments in the Battle Sect, and was a proper replacement player. Wherever he was needed, he would go. Today he was in charge of security, but tomorrow he might become the disciples' coach and guide their cultivation. As Wang Ling's sub-account, Crispy Noodles was just a real clone, but he unexpectedly gave people a reliable and reassuring feeling. When the disciples in the sentry tower saw Crispy Noodles arrive, they breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. Almost all the disciples in Battle Sect knew how strong Elder Crispy Noodles was. "Mr. Security Guard, your Battle Sect stole our people, so you should give them back to us. If you persist in going about things the wrong way, we'll have to take them by force," Snake threatened. Crispy Noodles sighed in his heart, lamenting that the foreigner in front of him had so much nonsense to say, and he suspected that he was exaggerating the number of words. Instead, he was hoping that Snake would act faster. Until he saw Lu Gang galloping towards him from the horizon. So that's how it is. It's all God's will. The young man raised his head and stared through the layers of clouds at the approaching beam of light. He immediately understood who the culprit was. There was only one person in the entire universe who could achieve such finger strength. The strongest person was about to be eliminated, so there was no point in fighting. The young man sighed in disappointment and turned to return to the sect. As soon as he took a step forward, Snake reached out and pressed his shoulder. "You want to leave? It's not that easy." The domineering spiritual power passed through Snake's body like an electric current, and the young man's body paused for a moment before he ignored the pressure and continued walking forward. Snake was furious in his heart. Although he had long heard that since the rise of the Battle Sect, each disciple inside was more arrogant than the other, why was even a security guard so King awesome? "You're going too far." The next moment, Snake roared, and his body began to multiply at a speed visible to the naked eye. He swelled into a steel giant that was 10 meters tall. This was the body doubling amplification spell, a spell that developed the body's potential to the extreme. A huge shadow covered the sky and the sun, completely blocking out the sunlight overhead. As expected of young Master Ling, he even managed to capture the situation after the amplification, Crispy Noodles' expression was indifferent as he continued to stride forward expressionlessly. When he had seen the phenomena pillar flying toward him earlier, there had actually been a deviation of several meters. That was to say, if Snake hadn't used this amplification spell, he would have been able to escape this calamity. But now, it was almost certain death. The next second, under everyone's watchful eyes, a needle flew down from the sky and hit the back of Snake's head with a poochie sound, directly piercing through his entire head. It was a bloodless needle. But the moment it pierced through, it disintegrated all of Snake's brain tissue. His huge body crashed down in front of the mountain gate, and then his body, which had expanded dramatically, gradually shrank. Crispy Noodles didn't even turn his head, because this was what he had already expected. At this point, the group of scavengers in front of the mountain gate were all stunned. Captain, they weren't in a hurry to get revenge. Instead, they immediately surrounded Snake and took out all kinds of emergency magic treasures to save him. When the scanner scanned Snake's brain, one of the team members was already so shocked that he couldn't speak, because the scan showed that Snake's head was completely hollow. The moment the flying needle pierced through, the entire brain had been incinerated completely by the overflowing energy. Brain dead, there was no saving him. Several scavengers quickly made their judgment. Someone tried to get revenge, but was intercepted by another person. This was the deputy captain of the scavengers, named Kaz. The entire security team killed our captain without even looking back. If you go over like this, you'll just be sending yourself to death. The people of Battle's sect were terrifyingly strong, even more so than the rumors said. The situation in front of them was already beyond Kaz's understanding. What on earth did he do? No, I didn't see it at all. It looked like a magic treasure, coming from afar. That's too scary. He clearly didn't even lift his hand. Did he use his mind to control the magic treasure? At the very least, it's an upper-class holy weapon. No, it might be world-defying. He didn't even have any spiritual energy fluctuations just now, and didn't even consume spiritual energy to activate a world-defying magic treasure. As the scavengers discussed this, they all felt chills run down their spines and their hair stand on end. Let's not act rashly for now, let's report the situation to Lord Judgment first. Kez frowned, and immediately directed everyone to quickly leave Battle Sect's mountain gate with Snake's corpse. They still had a void magic ball given to them by Lord Judgment, but so far they didn't know what this magic ball was for. As the foreigners left, the disciples on sentry duty at the sentry tower also lifted the danger alarm, and the entire Battle Sect was in high spirits. Did you see that? Elder Crispy Noodles is too strong. I saw it. It looked like he used his mind to activate the magic treasure and directly killed that troublemaker captain. Is that foreigner really dead? He should be. Look at the way the rest of them are scurrying away like rats, they've obviously been scared. Look at Elder Crispy Noodles, he looks so calm and collected. He didn't even lift his hand during the whole process, and there wasn't even any spiritual energy fluctuations. And when that foreigner leader's body swelled up, Elder Crispy Noodles actually chose to turn back. It looks like Elder Crispy Noodles has already decided that this person is dead for sure, so he turned back? Real men. They never look behind them. Crispy Noodles smiled bitterly in his heart at these remarks. Although he was a fill-in player, he hadn't expected that he would also have to fill in as the scapegoat. Wasn't this stealing Audiobook's job? Chapter 1233. The scavengers had been repelled for the time being, but that didn't mean the matter was over. This was just the beginning of chaos. Audiobook was still pressing on with his questioning of Cleone. On the other side, the various forces were also making their own moves. The towering Huagua water curtain group building was empty. Everyone had been evacuated in advance. Only the men in black who had been sent out earlier were left to report on their work. Sunny Yuan's face was exceptionally ugly. He hadn't expected so many people to be involved this time. Not only were overseas foundations and combat sects involved, but even the main alliance was also involved. Furthermore, it seemed that these forces had branches that were secretly fighting each other. Legend has it that the Foundation has a scavengers team, which are killing machines specially bred by the Foundation. I never thought it would actually be true. When the men in black finished their report, Jiang Xiaoche also had a very surprised expression. Then he frowned deeply. Master, I'm afraid we've already exposed our identities by getting involved this time. Sun Yiyuan glanced at Jiang Xiaoche and shook his head. No, the truth is that our operation this time was secretly instructed by the main alliance. Otherwise, do you think I would have the guts to get involved in this matter? Instructed by the main alliance? Jiang Xiaoche was even more surprised. To be exact, it was directly instructed by His Excellency. It's actually His Excellency. Jiang Xiaoche's eyes widened. Judging from the outcome of this operation, the situation is worse than I thought. Since His Excellency instructed me to get involved, it proves that there might already be a spy in the main alliance that His Excellency doesn't trust. Saying this, Old Man Sun frowned slightly. It was just that they still didn't know where on earth this spy came from. Was it someone from the Foundation? Or was it an unknown force from somewhere else? None of this was known at the moment. Sun Yiyuan was a veteran. A company could never be above the state, he understood this principle. Although Huaguo Water Curtain Group was astonishingly wealthy, Sun Yiyuan wouldn't get involved in this matter without authorization. Of course, as a businessman, the more Old Fox Sun took the risk to get involved this time, the more conditions Huaguo Water Curtain Group would raise. Sun Yiyuan didn't lack anything in his life, be it wealth, beautiful women, or any novel objects. Everything a secular person wanted was fleeting in his eyes. The only person he treasured was his granddaughter. As long as Lotus Sun's yin and yang death tribulation wasn't resolved, he would be on tenterhooks. Thus, Sun Yiyuan's condition was that after this matter was over, he wanted the headquarters to do their utmost to break the yin-yang death tribulation. Looks like we have no choice but to interfere in this matter. When Jiang Xiaoche heard this, he understood Huaguo Water Curtain Group's current situation. Judging from the current events, the General Alliance might have lost the trust of that lord because of the traitor. That lord had no choice but to ask the Huaguo Water Curtain Group to secretly investigate. They were already involved in this matter, so it was naturally impossible for them to escape unscathed. However, there was one thing that Jiang Xiaoche did not quite understand. He bluntly asked, why did that lord not allow the battle sect to investigate? I was also thinking about this before. Old Man Sun said, maybe you have your own concerns. Or perhaps Master feels that the battle sect has a close relationship with the headquarter alliance, and that there might be a mole within. But the problem is that the person has already been snatched away by the war sect. Jiang Xiaoche wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They were now caught in the middle, and their situation was very awkward. They couldn't win in a fight, and couldn't extricate themselves from this matter. The whole situation was quite unfavorable for Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Most importantly, their actions just now had exposed their identities. The mole at the headquarters and the Foundation's scavengers could make a move on Huaguo Water Curtain Group at any time. This situation of being attacked from the front and the back could be said to be a stalemate. Now, Jiang Xiaoche finally understood why Sun Yiyuan had ordered all the employees in the building to be evacuated yesterday. Obviously, the old man didn't want to implicate the innocent employees. Now we can only gamble. After thinking about it, Old Man Sun quickly made a decision. Everyone else evacuate. Xiaoche, come with me to the Sun family treasury. Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoche's pupils shrank. Master, since we're already involved and can't extricate ourselves, there's no harm in blowing things up a little. Saying this, Old Man Sun got up and took off his suit jacket. Underneath the jacket, his strong muscles pushed up his white shirt, which was especially conspicuous. Going to the Sun family treasury, how many years had it been since Jiang Xiaoche had heard this sentence? This was the signal that Old Man Sun was going to the treasury to retrieve his ancestral magic artifact and was personally coming out of retirement. At that moment, Sun Yiyuan wasn't sure if he could trust Battle Sect. But as long as he gave it a try, everything would become clear. On the other side, Ajwa had already made a new breakthrough in his questioning of Cowan. Their topic had already turned to hollow spirits. This was a strange and mysterious term that Audiobook had only heard today. There's actually such a thing as a void invasion. Audiobook was secretly astonished after listening to Cowan's words. These had all been Gu Xuanji's deductions at first, but Audiobook hadn't expected them to be confirmed by Cowan. Void invasion, you've summed it up very well. Cowan smiled bitterly. Our world is indeed suffering from the merciless invasion of void creatures. Did you come to Xiao Nation to investigate 20 years ago? To be exact, it should be earlier. The large amount of evidence I have shows that the hollow spirits appeared earlier than the Foundation thought, Cowan said. It's just that they've been secretly observing humans before this, and have been lurking in the human world for a very long time. Furthermore, there weren't many of them at the beginning. They didn't reach the point where we needed to be on guard at all. Observing humans. Audiobook couldn't help sighing when he heard this. Just like humans playing with little insects in a greenhouse. Cowan smiled. That's a very good analogy. Perhaps to them, we are indeed like insects trapped in a greenhouse. Because the hollow spirits themselves are indeed a higher form of life. They're like wind and light, like clouds and fog. They don't have a physical body, but they're extremely intelligent. But why would such highly intelligent creatures be interested in ants in their eyes? The evidence I have so far is still limited, so I can only make assumptions, Cowan said. After a long period of observation, I realized that they seem to be looking for something. The current void invasion is precisely because of this thing. What kind of thing? Audiobook asked. It doesn't have to be something. It could also be a person, Cowan replied. Chapter 1234. After this conversation, Kuhn's nervousness had clearly eased a lot. Perhaps it was because Snake's death made him feel like a burden had been lifted from his heart. As one of the investigators, he had felt and seen too many of his colleagues die at the hands of scavengers. At some point in time, Kuhn had also started to fear scavengers in the depths of his heart. But now, with Snake's death, everything had become a relief. It was as if Battle's sect had become Kuhn's safe haven. Staying in the true Venerate Great Hall in the hinterland gave Kuhn a sense of security. This newly established sect had leapt to the top 10 of the world's sects at an almost bizarre speed. It firmly occupied the throne of third place. Apart from the fact that its economy and the overall quality of its disciples couldn't compare to the top 2 sects, it was practically beaten in every other aspect. The first 2 required a long period of development to accumulate. After all, Battle's sect was a newly established sect, and it had already been very difficult for it to reach this stage. You don't think it's necessarily an object, but a person. Audiobook frowned deeply when he heard Kuhn's speculation. If it was to find an object, he thought of his Shifu's omniscient elephant's pillar. But it wasn't like his Shifu wouldn't return the pillar. Was it worth it for a hollow spirit to riot over a magic artifact? The omniscient elephant's pillar definitely wasn't the only thing in the void behind the gate of the void. Furthermore, it had to be something even more powerful. In comparison, Audiobook felt that the weight of this omniscient elephant's pillar didn't seem to be that high. But if they were here to find someone, that would be a very wide range. Even if they narrowed it down, it seemed that they could only lock onto Huaxiu Nation. 20 years ago, the Foundation had sent Kuhn to investigate Huaxiu Nation in order to investigate the hidden hollow spirits in Huaxiu Nation. Looking at the overall data, Huaxiu currently had the most hidden hollow spirits in its territory. Hence, all of this was because of a certain person in Huaxiu Nation. At this point, the situation gradually became clear. Is there any way to identify hidden hollow spirits? As I said before, hollow spirits are high-level creatures without a physical body. When they reside in a human body, there's bound to be a rejection reaction. A rejection reaction? It's only at the beginning. Hollow spirits are extremely adaptable. The faster ones will be able to adapt in a day, the slower ones will need about 5 days. However, no matter how fast or slow they are, they will need to drink a red medicinal soup. How did you know? Audiobook was amazed. I've had cases of people being possessed by hollow spirits. That gave me good information. At this point, Cohen couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Riches come with risks. What I'm doing is very dangerous. If I'm found out that I'm testing the hollow spirit, I'll definitely die. Using the body of a human to deal with an unknown higher being. Hearing this, even Audjua couldn't help but admire Keon's courage. He sensed the spirit of a desperate man from Korn. In fact, the investigators of the SBP Foundation all had this spirit. It was the mission of every SBP investigator to do their best to unearth and pursue the truth. Audjua couldn't help recalling the extreme weather when he had hugged a tree and reported for duty at the front. Then, the reporters and cameramen who were swept away by floods or hurricanes. I took a sample of the red decoction and wanted to take it to the foundation for testing. Where is Ben now? I don't have it with me, it's in my apartment. I don't know if it was destroyed by the scavengers. Korn frowned deeply. Given their ability, it shouldn't be hard for them to find out where I live. It seemed that the key was the sample of the red decoction. If they could crack the secret, they might be able to discover the difference between human cultivators who were possessed by hollow spirits and ordinary human cultivators. I'll think of something about the decoction. After saying this, Audjua looked at Immortal Jinyuan next to him. Senior, did you hear that? Please help me find this decoction. That's easy. Immortal Jinyuan nodded. With a turn of his body, his entire body turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Korn had never seen such frightening spatial manipulation before. What on earth is this senior's background? That's a sect secret. If you want to know, you can investigate it yourself. Korn wiped at his sweat. It's not that I haven't looked into Battle's sect, but it wasn't until today that I realized there were still a lot of things I missed. Furthermore, this is the first time I've seen a sect set up a snack shop in their own sect. In order to control what their disciples ate, large sects usually didn't set up this kind of snack shop. They ate too much puffed and fried food and carbonated drinks. Over the years, this would have a huge impact on the growth and development of the spirit root. This was also why people who liked to drink fat otaku cola generally had low cultivation levels. A certain expert had once publicly published this opinion in Cultivator Has a Say Daily. Of course Audjua knew what Korn was trying to say by specifically mentioning the snack shop. He smiled slightly. Actually, I don't think that eating snacks will necessarily have an impact on one's realm. When a person's realm and strength had already reached a sufficiently heaven-defying level, how could they be swayed by a few bags of snacks? Audjua had also thought this way when he was younger. But after meeting his adorable little Shifu, he felt that a whole new world had opened up to him. Wang Ling's existence had completely subverted his understanding of cultivation. In Audjua's eyes, the so-called impact of eating snacks on one's realm was simply a paradox. Cultivators just needed to have a limit to everything they did. Thus, Audjua believed that eating less or occasionally wouldn't have an impact on the development of the spirit root. I don't agree with Mr. Zhuo's point of view. The reason I have my current cultivation is because I've never eaten those so-called junk foods since I was a child. Korn smiled. But in the next moment, Audjua's soul interrogation stunned Korn on the spot. But Mr. Korn, do you think you've been happy all this time? Korn fell silent. I know that it might be very difficult to change Mr. Korn's understanding of cultivation in the short term, Audjua said. Audjua said, but if Mr. Klein is willing to join our sect and fully understand our corporate culture, so Mr. Zhuo wants to pull me in? Keon stopped Audjua from speaking. After going around in a big circle, he finally understood Audjua's meaning after hearing this. Sure enough, the Oriental way of talking was broad and profound. Korn gasped in amazement. Audjua smiled. Mr. Korn, Battle's sect won't easily extend an olive branch. Korn thought for a bit and also smiled. Once this is over, I'll think about it. The two of them chatted as they waited for Immortal Jinyuan to bring back a sample of the red medicine. At that moment, a disciple outside the door hurried in. Report Mr. Sun of Huagua Water Curtain Group requests an audience. Mr. Sun? The visitor was a little unexpected for Audjua. At the same time, Audra felt that this person was quite difficult to deal with. After all, there was a small chance that this person would become Audra Shifu's father. Simply put, there was an extremely small chance that this person would become Audra's future Shifu. Then Audra's attitude towards this person, whether Sunny Yuan was here to cause trouble or not, Audra had to consider it carefully. Chapter 1235. Battle Sect Central Lakeside was a place specially built for disciples who specialized in water magic. A pavilion stretched along an elegant winding corridor along the shore to the center of the lakeside, dividing the entire lake. Under the baptism of the moonlight, it had the beauty of yin and yang separating the dusky dawn. Sunny Yuan entered through the mountain gate, and after being informed by a Battle Sect disciple, he was led here. When he left the mountain this time, he was already prepared to fight. However, he did not expect that the way the war sect treated him was unusually gentle. On his way here, Sunny Yuan had just received news that one of the scavengers had died. One of the team leaders had already died. No one had seen how he had died, but the intelligence indicated that he had been killed by a security guard. When he had first received this news, Sunny Yuan had thought that something had gone wrong. In the end, when he had just passed the mountain gate, he had seen a youngster who looked a little like Wang Ling, but who was fundamentally different, looking at him with a smile. Although he looked like Wang Ling, he knew very well that this wasn't Wang Ling. His aura was fundamentally different, and from what he had always observed about Wang Ling wasn't someone who knew how to smile. But this youngster in front of the mountain gate was smiling at him. It was a smile that sent chills down his spine and made his hair stand on end. If he were to fight with that youngster just now, what were his chances of winning? Sunny Yuan had been pondering this question on his way to the central lakeside. Battle Sect's battle strength was too terrifying. Even the security guard at the entrance was a sweeping monk. No wonder Battle Sect had been able to quickly secure its throne as the #1 sect in Huaxiao Nation in just a few short months after its establishment. If this continued, Battle Sect would probably be able to easily take down the #1 position in the world. Sunny Yuan waited in the pavilion for a while. Before long, footsteps could be heard in the corridor, and in the pale and bright moonlight, he saw the newcomer's face. It was a young man who looked a little ugly. At first, Sunny Yuan didn't recognize him. Then, the young man said, "Mr. Sun, it's our Battle Sect's great fortune to have come to visit. May your immortal luck prosper." This familiar voice instantly evoked Sunny Yuan's thoughts, and he immediately narrowed his eyes. I'm Audra." Audra revealed his true identity without any hesitation after he had pinched his face. "As expected, you weren't caught." Sunny Yuan smiled. "It seems that Mr. Sun has expected this. I can roughly guess that you've already escaped, but I don't know where you are." With his hands behind his back, Old Man Sun gently floated up and left the pavilion. His body was as light as duckweed as he stood on the surface of the lake. There were only a few ripples and a few circles of ripples. Audra followed Old Man Sun's example and also stood on the surface of the lake, the two of them looking at each other deeply in the soft moonlight. "Dakong has his eyes on you, and you're also the person most likely to succeed him as the leader of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools in the future." Sunny Yuan said, "I originally had some doubts about his choice, but now it seems that you do have some ability." "Mr. Sun is too kind, little Zhuzi was just lucky." Audra cupped his fists in salute. He saw that Sunny Yuan had changed into a set of light sportswear. He could roughly guess the purpose of this old man's trip up the mountain. "Is Mr. Sun planning to use violence to get me back?" Audra asked. The corners of Sunny Yuan's mouth twitched when he heard this. As the chairman of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, he had indeed come in person with the intention of fighting. But the problem was that they were being too polite. How could he make a move? He had even taken out the ancestral magic weapon, Gold and Jade Sky Shocking Rod, from the Sun family's treasury. How about I guess the purpose of Mr. Sun's trip? Seeing that Sunny Yuan wasn't speaking, Audra began to analyze the situation. Mr. Sun did indeed intend to fight us at first. But after entering our Battle Sect's mountain gate, Mr. Sun realized that we weren't hostile, so perhaps the general purpose of Mr. Sun's trip was to test our battle sect strength. You've seen through everything, Old Man Sun chuckled. Of course, the reason why he hadn't made a move wasn't entirely because he had realized that battle sect wasn't hostile towards him. It was because he had realized that even if he did make a move, he might not necessarily be able to beat the security guard at the gate. He was a true immortal, but he had been frightened by the imposing manner of a security guard. If he really couldn't beat him, wouldn't he become the laughing stock of the world? And the most important thing was that if word got out, Huagua Water Curtain Group's stock price would definitely plummet. As a businessman, in order to preserve his integrity, after careful consideration, Sun Yiyuan felt that directly making a move wasn't appropriate. Furthermore, a fight between true immortals would cause too much of a commotion, enough to destroy a city. We've already backed up the video footage of Klein's interrogation. On the lake, Audiobook said frankly, if Mr. Sun wants to see it, I can take Mr. Sun there now. You're quite honest. Sun Yiyuan looked at Audiobook. Aren't you worried that I'm not on your side? Audiobook smiled. No matter how bold a financial group is, it's impossible for them to go against the head alliance. Unless Mr. Sun is acting on someone's orders. Audiobook had thought of this when he had listened to Immortal Jinyuan's analysis in the Wuling Hongguang van about the smell of medicine on some of the people on the road. So when he thought about it further, it was very obvious whose orders Huagua Water Curtain Group was acting on. Ever since the head alliance was established, it's been that Lord's. Our battle sect relied on it to grow. Naturally, we will stand on that Lord's side unconditionally. Audiobook bowed again. Mr. Sun, do you know why I asked to meet you here? In the evening breeze, Sun Yiyuan's gaze was incomparably tranquil as he looked at the bright moon reflected on the lake in front of him. Heart like a bright moon. Old Man Sun stared at the moon, his tense heart relaxing a little. He sighed in his heart. It was a good thing that Battle Sect wasn't an enemy, they weren't on the other side. Otherwise, the outcome would have been really hard to predict. Just sending out the security guards at the door would have been enough to kill like crazy. We will share the following information with Mr. Sunday. If Mr. Sun trusts us, we will share it with you. If Mr. Sun trusts us, we can also share some of what we know. Saying this, the phone in Audiobook's trouser pocket vibrated. Immortal Jinyuan had returned. Audiobook learned that the sample of the red medicine was in perfect condition. The main thing was that Klein had stored it in a very tricky place. He had actually put it in the toilet. When Immortal Jinyuan had arrived, Klein's place of residence had been a mess, and it had clearly been searched by the scavengers. But they had never expected Klein's action of putting the sample in the toilet would imperceptibly protect the sample. Because before this bunch of scavengers had opened the toilet, in this way, Lord Ma had already sent the sample away. When Immortal Jinyuan went over again, Lord Ma had sent the sample back. Chapter 1236. There was no toilet in this world that was stronger than Lord Ma. Not only was he an enlightened spiritual monster who had seen the buttocks of the men from the Wang family, but he was also a spiritual monster who controlled the toilets of the entire earth. If he reached the standard of a grade 4 enchantment, this range could be expanded. As Wang Ling's chief disciple, he naturally knew how powerful Lord Ma was. This kind of teleportation ability could only be described as heaven-defying. This matter is all thanks to Lord Ma. Audiobook listened to Immortal Jinyuan's explanation in the Great Hall of True Venerated. He couldn't help but mutter to himself again. Who is Lord Ma? Sun Yiyuan sat on the guest chamberlain's chair and revealed a curious look. Lord Ma was an enlightened gremlin, so of course Audiobook couldn't reveal his identity. However, he didn't want to lie to Old Man Sun, so he thought of a reasonable explanation. He's an excellent courier. Then the courier has done a good job. Sun Yiyuan was also full of praise. He is indeed dedicated. Audiobook nodded. Lord Ma's professionalism wasn't just for show. He heard that Lord Ma was in a relationship recently. And his love partner was the cosmic god tree that had previously drained his nutrients. This should be the first among all the monsters in the Wang family's small villa to be single. What was even more unexpected was that Lord Ma, who was no longer single, actually didn't look that young. However, as the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Miss Cosmic God Tree liked Lord Ma, so there was nothing she could do about it. It could only be said that it was worthy of being a spiritual monster that was enlightened by Master. She was clearly in love, but she still completed her mission. Hearing this, Immortal Jinyuan couldn't help sighing at Audua's eloquence. He could turn the story of a greedy girl begging for fertilizer into a love story of a dedicated courier. Audua was indeed a rare talent. How long will the test take? Old Man Sun sat in the guest seat and took a sip of tea. He had been observing Immortal Jinyuan since the beginning. Because this was another expert he didn't know. In his heart, he was glad that he didn't really make a move just now. Otherwise, he would have no place to hide his old face. This Zhan Zongtian was too terrifying. Nameless experts at the level of sweeping monks were everywhere. This was King ridiculous. Immortal Toya is already experimenting, it should be soon. However, in the end, I'm afraid that our battle sex medicinal laboratory is not as advanced as Mr. Sun's groups. Speaking up to this point, Audua narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled. Everyone knows that Huaguo Water Curtain Group built the first 5th grade elixir laboratory in the country. Unfortunately, our battle sect is currently short on funds, and we still have so many disciples to feed. We still can't afford to open this laboratory. Sunny Yuan choked on his saliva. He wasn't a fool, and of course he understood what Audua was hinting at. No, this already couldn't be considered a hint. In Audua's view, it was already clear. However, Sunny Yuan did not intend to accept this. The construction cost of a level 5 pill laboratory was especially expensive, at least 1 billion immortal gold. With this amount of money, he could open a new sky-class sect. Any investment must pay attention to the return, and he was not a philanthropist. He was a businessman, and he would not invest without a good reason. Contrary to Sunny Yuan's expectations, Audua actually didn't continue pestering him, and instead changed the topic back to Keon. Mr. Keon, I remember that the SBP Foundation was also founded by the International Alliance of Cultivators back then? That's right. Keon nodded. This was a fact that everyone knew, so there was nothing to hide. Let me get a little gossip. How much did you invest in the initial establishment? I think it was 1.5 billion immortal gold, and that's just the operational investment. If you add in the equipment and site, the total investment is already over 3 billion. Does the Foundation also have an elixir laboratory? Yes. It's a level 5 pill laboratory. It was built by Mishio Nation's Torinos Pill Company. That can't be, right? It costs a lot to build a level 5 pill laboratory. Which entrepreneur would invest for no reason? Audua had an incredulous expression on his face. Mr. Zhua, you have to believe that there are still people in this world who are true, kind, and beautiful, and who sincerely contribute to world peace. Keon's words were very sincere. After saying this, he glanced at Sunny Yuan out of the corner of his eye. Of course, not all outstanding entrepreneurs have this kind of awareness. Hearing this, Old Man Sun's hand holding the teacup started to tremble. He was now especially regretful. He shouldn't have chosen to come to Battle's sect from the very beginning. Wasn't this clearly extortion on the basis of morality? From start to finish, Audua hadn't asked him to help Battle's sect set up a laboratory. But after gossiping with Keon, every word Keon said struck at Audua's heart. It was the kind of strike at the heart that killed and strike at the heart. As an outstanding entrepreneur, Sunny Yuan indeed felt as if his conscience had been shaken. At this point, looking at Sunny Yuan's expression, Audua knew that the matter of the Battle Sect's Level 5 laboratory was basically settled. Although this old man's son didn't say anything, his heart had probably already sunk into a deep, moral vortex. Although his methods were a little despicable, there were times when despicable and shameful, but they were useful. Since things had already progressed to this point, there was naturally no way for Audua to stop. In the end, he stared at Sunny Yuan and added the final blow. I know that Mr. Sun is an outstanding entrepreneur, and definitely has the same corporate conscience as Torino's Pill Company. Of course, Sunny Yuan took a deep breath and gritted his teeth as he stared at Odd Joie. Don't worry, Mr. Joie. Once this matter is over, my Huaguo Water Curtain Group will invest in the construction of the Battle Sex Level 5 laboratory. How can I accept this? Hearing this, Odd Joie immediately got up. What virtue or ability does my battle sect have to accept such a big gift from Mr. Sun? But then again, this is definitely of Mr. Sun's own free will, right? Otherwise, if word gets out that my battle sect is coercing you, we can't afford to lose our reputation. Old Man Sun did his best to maintain a smile. Of my own free will, all of this stems from my entrepreneur's conscience, and so, in this delightful conversation about entrepreneur's conscience, it was as if Odd Joie could hear his teeth grinding. But he was certain. This probably wasn't an illusion. It was already 2:12 in the morning on Thursday, November 26th. He hadn't fallen asleep yet. After finishing his homework, he had been secretly assisting in the investigation of the Foundation. According to the clues left behind by Warden Liang, there were 7 main envoys behind the scenes of the Foundation. Book of Sage Immortal listed these 7 people in detail in front of Wang Ling. This was the relevant information extracted from Warden Liang's soul memory. And his soul was already under Wang Ling's protection. Position 1, Moon. Gender unclear, but a gentle person. Position 2, Star. More intelligence than the others. Claims to have prophetic abilities. Position 3, Sunday. Always exudes a sense of justice like a big brother. Position 4, Judgment. Host of the meeting. Voice shrill and funny. Gender unclear. Position 5, War Chariot. Like his code name, his style is full of violence. Position 6, Fate. A man of few words, but can always give hints at critical moments. Position 7, The Fool. Always leaves the meeting midway. Very mysterious. After reading this, Wang Ling felt like he was playing werewolf killer. Then, among these 7 people, who on earth was the Void Spy, and how many wolves were there? Chapter 1237. St. Pius Cathedral, the base of the Moon Emissary. The glazed glass roof of the cathedral shone with a rainbow of colors under the sunlight. Sitting in the middle of the cathedral, one would have the illusion of living in a rainbow illusion. For every believer who believed in God, this was undoubtedly the closest place to God. A nun in black robes and a veil stepped into the cathedral. She walked up the wide aisle, and the bright moonlight shone through the top of the wall, illuminating the tranquil face of the Moon Emissary. The Moon Emissary gazed at the mural of God on the prayer altar with her silver-white eyes and prayed devoutly. A moment later, her thoughts were led, and her whole body turned into a black shadow, sitting in the spiritual space. No one could have imagined that the legendary Moon Emissary's true identity was nothing more than a nun of a church. At this moment, she sat dignifiedly on a bench in the spiritual space. At this moment, the Moon Emissary felt like she had become God, looking down on all living things. The existence of the Foundation greatly satisfied her vanity. And this was also the reason why she had agreed to join the SBP in the first place. The Moon Emissary opened her eyes. The neatness of the people in this meeting was somewhat unexpected. All 7 emissaries were here. Reliable news: Snake was killed by a fighter from the Battle Sect, and Cohen betrayed us. The Judgment Emissary, as the host of the meeting, told everyone the unfortunate news. Everyone present had different reactions to Snake's death. The most shocked person was the Moon Goddess. With his strength, he actually died at the hands of the Battle Sect. What a useless piece of trash. The Chariot Emissary hammered the table, looking very angry. Didn't he find out anything before he died? Not at all. The Star Emissary smiled slyly. The information he had obtained was no less than that of the Judgment Emissary. I'm afraid even the Judgment Emissary would not have thought that Snake would die at the hands of a Battle Sect security guard. Security guard? The rest of the people fell silent upon hearing this. Many people's hearts trembled wildly. It wasn't just the judgment emissary. Everyone here seemed to have underestimated the combat power of the battle sect. In this day and age, how could there be a lunatic sect that used a true immortal as a security guard? Snake's strength was at half-step true immortal, just a little bit more and he would be able to leap into the realm of true immortal. To be able to defeat Snake, even if he was a security guard, he would at least have the strength of a true immortal. I've already organized the scavengers to temporarily retreat. I don't know if anyone has any opinions or thoughts. Subai looked at each and every one of them. As the host of the conference, the legendary Judgment Messenger of the Foundation, he felt that he had seen through everything. After becoming a higher-level creature, their ability to obtain information was naturally extraordinary. He could communicate directly with the Void Master and ask for his help. Let the Lord use the supreme power of the Void to give him all the answers he wanted. Therefore, he already knew the identity of every single person here, including the residents of every single emissary. Snake's death was something he had long foreseen. As long as the Void Orb existed, he would be able to absorb Snake's soul immediately after his death and transform Snake into a high-level ethereal. At that time, as long as he killed anyone here, and then let Snake invade the Void, he would be able to control one more emissary. After that, as long as he repeated the above actions, the entire Foundation would fall into his hands. But right now, the most important thing was still acting. He couldn't directly reveal everyone's identity. And Subai was deeply conflicted as to whose body he should let Snake invade. He had to observe first and see who would dare disobey him. It's too dangerous for the scavengers to remain in Huaxiao. I think we should withdraw them all for now and wait and see. At that moment, Sun Messenger said, the scavengers have done a lot for the Foundation over the years. Once they fall into the hands of another country, everything the Foundation has done will be exposed. But the problem is, Cleon is already in their hands, isn't he? Tank continued to slap the table in an unusually irritable manner. The scavengers have higher priority than these investigators, and they may not know about the scavengers. Sun Messenger insisted on his point of view. All these years, the scavengers have done nothing that can be used against them. They've done a great job, haven't they? Tank was furious. I still don't agree. The death of the scavengers is tantamount to the Foundation being humiliated in another country. We must get back at them. The dispute between Sun and Tank was to be expected. Their personalities were as different as heaven and earth. But after both of them expressed their views, there seemed to be a focus of discussion in this meeting. As usual, whether the scavengers stay or leave will be decided by a vote. The minority must obey the majority, Subai said as envoy of judgment. Sun Messenger was considering the Foundation's long-term development, but he seemed to prefer Tank Messenger's way of handling things. In any power struggle, if all the plans were too conservative, sooner or later the Foundation would be nibbled away. Under his control, the Foundation had to grow stronger. Therefore, it was crucial to establish the Foundation's prestige. Subai wasn't afraid of Battle Sect at all. In his opinion, Battle Sect was nothing more than a stepping stone for the Foundation's development. It was destined to serve him. I support Tank's view. So, he spoke first to express his opinion. It was rare for the host to express his opinion first. Looking at this scene, Sun Messenger instantly felt a hint of anger rise in his heart. He had the feeling that he was being targeted. When he saw the other envoys vote one after another, this surging anger was on the verge of erupting. Moon. Star. Fate. What on earth do the three of you mean? Sun Messenger questioned the three of them. Moon, haven't you always advocated peace? Why would you agree with Tank Messenger's violent style? Nun Moon was silent. She actually didn't have her own opinion, and following the crowd was her usual practice. Star Messenger, although Sun Messenger's words are reasonable, I always follow my own judgment. At this time, Sun Messenger looked at Fate. Like before, Fate fell silent again. Finally, everyone's eyes turned to the only person who didn't express his opinion. The fool, what do you think? Su Bai stared at the black shadow sitting at the back and narrowed his eyes. The fool often left midway through a meeting. This was the only time the fool didn't leave. But now it seemed that the fool's vote was meaningless. Even if he voted for Sun, this vote was destined to be won by Tank. In the silence, everyone seemed to hear a rustling sound, as if someone was chewing something. Who's secretly eating snacks during a meeting? Su Bai asked in surprise. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. They were surprised to find that the sound came from the fool in the 7th seat. It was coming from the black shadow that the fool had transformed into. Although they couldn't see the fool's face and could only see a black shadow, they could clearly see what the black shadow was doing. They saw the fool seem to have opened a new bag of packaging, took out the seasoning packet, and skillfully tore it open and sprinkled it in. Then he put his hands together and crushed the snacks. Su Bai's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. From what he knew, the fool was not like this. He didn't have a hobby of eating snacks. But who was this fool? And this action of opening the bag of snacks seemed a little familiar to Su Bai. His gaze touched. Deep in his heart, an inexplicable sense of fear was awakened at this moment. Of course, it did not rule out the possibility that some people ate snacks to relieve their stress. Su Bai nervously swallowed the saliva in his mouth and spoke. The fool, don't you have anything to say? He still firmly believed in the Void Lord's judgment. He confirmed that the envoy sitting in the 7th seat was the old woodman, Joyce. Not the man she wanted to take revenge on. His innocence was not the slightest bit empty. But now was not the best time for revenge. He just needed a little more time to prepare. I agree with Tank's opinion. Finally, the voice of the fool was heard. This slightly rough voice made Su Bai heave a sigh of relief. He was sure it was Joyce's voice. And his tone was exactly the same as Joyce's. In that case, 6 chariots and 1 sun. The Foundation will draw up a follow-up plan based on Tank's suggestion. After saying this, Su Bai made his final decision in the mental space. The meeting came to an end. In the bedroom of the Wang family's small villa, Wang Ling opened his eyes. At the last moment of the meeting just now, Wang Ling had cancelled his temporary possession spell. He returned the body to its rightful owner, Joyce Charcoal Lang. This was a good brother who knew how to dote on his little sister. Wang Ling didn't want to implicate Joyce because of him. He had already signed a soul contract with Joyce, so he had the right to possess Joyce at any time. In return, Wang Ling promised to help Joyce cure his little sister. The evil spirit had already fused with his little sister's soul. But for Wang Ling, it would only take a flick of his finger for him to extract the evil ghost. Of course, Joyce was touched by Wang Ling's body. He felt that his unwavering devotion to his little sister all these years had touched the heavens, and he had been redeemed by God. After Wang Ling cancelled his possession, Joyce knelt down on both knees and raised his hands in prayer as he looked up at the sky and thanked God with the most devout eyes. Joyce, Lord. Thank God. If you mainly use my body, you're welcome to possess me at any time. Wang Ling, is it done? At that moment, Wang Ling turned his gaze to the tablet on the table. Although Wang Ling already had the thought of giving it away. So, he had to give it away. But for the time being, April was still useful. While my lord was possessing me, I already figured out the identities of the people in the spirit space. Book of Sage Immortal gave the results of its deductions. There was no doubt that the 7 members of the Foundation were all foreign cultivators. But that didn't rule out the possibility that some of them were colluding with the General Alliance. Among them, the probability of Tank colluding with them was as high as 87%, and he was a key target for observation. Wang Ling clicked on Tank's information. He discovered the real full name of Tank's emissary, Toy Dre. He was the big boss of a multinational spirit sword production company, and controlled more than 20 large spirit sword production factories. Every year, some of the mass-produced spirit swords in Huaxiao Nation came from Toy Dre. What astonished Wang Ling even more was that, this toy Dre actually seemed to be related by blood to someone Wang Ling knew. According to Book of Sage Immortal's bloodline analysis, toy Dre's DNA was actually highly similar to Yi Jiang's. The two of them were actually father and son. But Yi Jiang had been alone since he was a child. It was only after General Yi had taken a fancy to his talent that he had accepted him as a disciple. His life had gradually gotten better. To be honest, if it wasn't for this bloodline data, it was hard for Wang Ling to imagine that Yi Jiang had foreign blood. It looked like Yi Jiang might have inherited more of his mother's genes. And his mother was definitely an authentic Eastern beauty. Keep investigating. Wang Ling continued to give orders to Book of Sage Immortal. He needed to know who on earth Yi Jiang's mother was. As long as his mother was on Earth, he would be able to find some suspicious clues through a large database. It might take some time to find them. But Wang Ling had plenty of time now. In fact, in the data provided by Book of Sage Immortal, Wang Ling also discovered another interesting set of data. That was the inference about the identity of Messenger of Judgment number 4. Although Book of Sage Immortal gave a 76% probability to a person called Michelle, there was still a 24% probability. It was very likely that this Michelle had already been switched. Bai Zhe. Wang Ling stared at this familiar name and smiled in his heart. He hadn't expected this cockroach to be so tenacious. Chapter 1239. Today's Bai Zhe indeed couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before. Wang Ling could sense that Bai Zhe's combat strength had improved significantly. But the only thing that hadn't changed was his excessive self-confidence. Excessive self-confidence was conceit. This was also why Wang Ying had taken a liking to Bai Zhe at first, but hadn't put him in an important position. Bai Zhe was certainly strong, but conceited could easily cause trouble. So the question now was, how strong on earth was Bai Zhe? After Book of Sage Immortal examined him, it gave a definite answer. My lord, he seems to have already become a hollow spirit. Had he really been invaded by the void? Wang Ling wasn't surprised by this result. Because he was well aware of President Bai's hatred for him. In order to defeat him, President Bai would rather not be human and become a so-called higher-level creature. Wang Ling could feel this hatred even from across space. Do you have a specific estimate of his combat strength? Wang Ling asked Book of Sage Immortal. It's not easy to calculate, because my current understanding of void creatures is still limited. But the first thing Bai Zhe did after becoming a hollow spirit was to absorb Devil Gut Fungus Lord. This is a creature that has been enlightened by my lord. So right now, he might be stronger than Wang Zhen at his peak. Above venerated immortal was Tao Master. In other words, this person's current strength was indeed immeasurable. Back when Wang Zhen had come down from Ninefold Star to seek an explanation from him, Wang Ling actually wasn't afraid. With one glance, he could tell that Wang Zhen could probably withstand 5 slaps from Wang Ling at his peak. By punishing Wang Zhen, the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee had actually saved his life. Otherwise, Wang Zhen's soul would have long been destroyed by these 5 slaps. President Bai, who was now called Su Bai, was now stronger than Wang Zhen, which instantly piqued Wang Ling's interest. Was the 10 dragon subduing slaps, which had been sealed for so many years, about to be unsealed? Elsewhere, the initial test results for the red decoction were out. Immortal Toya had never seen a substance in the decoction before. But after comparing the medicinal properties, Immortal Toya was able to find a spirit plant with a similar effect from the existing stock of medicinal herbs on Earth, but it was far less effective than the red decoction. In the Great Hall of True Venerates, Immortal Toya took out a round azure magic ball. By touching the magic orb, he could project the images in his mind into the void. First of all, we can confirm that the spirit plant used to brew the red soup does not exist on Earth. Let's call them void plants for now. Immortal Toya said, after a reliable comparison, the medicinal properties of this void plant are similar to those of returning grass on Earth. Returning grass? Hearing this, Sun Yuan nodded slightly. He was in the production of medicinal pills, so he was naturally very sensitive to the names of some spirit plants. The returning grass was a rare and endangered spiritual plant. It was also the main ingredient used to make the resurrection pill. It could draw back a person's soul at a critical moment and save a person's life. It was used for those critically ill patients to hang on to air. As Mr. Carown said, ethereals are a type of high-level creature. It took them a very long time to evolve themselves to the point where they have no form and are like light and wind. And when it invades the bodies of human cultivators, it actually causes great harm to them as well. Immortal Toya said, if we compare Su Ling to a brand new software, then the environment for human cultivators is like an old system. The two can't be completely compatible. That's why they need this kind of tonic to make themselves adapt quickly. Audra raised his eyebrows. That is to say, when they invade a human body, they will in fact cause some harm to themselves. Immortal Toya nodded. In theory, that's true. But the truth is that as long as they adapt to a human body, their strength won't be affected. The only thing to be aware of is that if the container they live in isn't strong enough, it's very likely that it will break. And they won't die. When the time comes, they just need to switch to a new container. Simply put, the process of adapting to a human body is when they are at their weakest. If we take action at this time, they won't be able to effectively use their strength. Given our current strength, there's still a high chance that we can defeat them and eliminate them. Immortal Toya explained the situation to them. Then he turned the magic orb in his hand to show them a newly developed purple reagent. This is the ethereal detection reagent I just formulated. It's colorless and odorless based on the restraining effect of returning grass. Only ethereals who have drunk the red soup will have a reaction. What reaction? Audra asked. If it's just a smell, the person invaded by the ethereals will feel a foul stench. Immortal Toya said, if the reagent is injected or comes into contact with a human body. In a very short period of time, the person invaded by the ethereals will instantly lose their hair and become bald. Everyone, when Immortal Toya said this, everyone suddenly had a strong sense of déjà vu. Imagine if the ethereals completely broke out in the human world. If they used a reagent to detect them, then it was possible that the world would be filled with bald people. Now, because of irregular lifestyles, even the hair loss rate among college students was increasing year by year. Not to mention those in high-risk professions who had to stay up late for long periods of time. Programmers, media personnel, medical staff, teachers, web novelists. At this thought, Audra couldn't help trembling as he shivered all over. This was really a reagent that made people feel bald. I don't think we can just kill someone with a stick just because they lose their hair, right? There are still a lot of people who are bald now, Audra said. Killing them with a stick definitely won't work. Immortal Toya said, so for those who have already lost their hair, the best way is to smell it. As long as they don't feel nauseous, there's no possibility of them being invaded by the ethereals. When the time comes, we can give them a certificate or something. But how can people who have been invaded by the ethereals accept it so easily? I've also thought about that. Therefore, this matter must be a diversion. Immortal Toya said, the flu has been prevalent recently. I believe they won't refuse as long as we say it's a flu test. If they really don't cooperate, we can use the reagent in artificial rain. When the time comes, we just need to keep an eye on the streets to see if there are any people who have lost their hair after getting caught in the rain. At that moment, Sunny Yuan heaved a deep sigh and took off the wig on top of his head. Audra, Mr. Sunny Yuan, work is always stressful. A few years ago, I took hair-growing pills every day, and now my body has developed a resistance to them. Then I gave up resisting. Everyone. Chapter 1240. The successful development of the hollow test reagent finally gave everyone in Battle Sect a glimmer of hope. Their war with the hollow had already begun. But unlike previous battles, there was no smoke in the early stages of this war. Audra's goal was very clear. 1. They had to figure out who on earth the hollow were looking for. 2. They had to strangle the hollow in the cradle before they found the key person and officially launched the void invasion. I'll take the reagent back, Old Man Sun said at that moment. Huagua Water Curtain Group had many stores, which could allow Immortal Toya's reagent to be produced in large quantities in a short period of time and shipped to its stores all over the country. Sun Yiyuan had already thought about turning all the stores in his industrial chain into invisible hollow monitoring points. Using the spell fusion test reagent to create artificial rain over a large area was the worst plan, because there was a risk of alerting the enemy. Sun Yiyuan put on the wig again and tidied up his clothes. He had never made his baldness public before, but this was a special case. Since Battle's sect was already an ally, making it public was actually a sign of trust. Then I'll leave this matter to Mr. Sunday. Audiobook, Immortal Jinyuan and Immortal Toya cupped their fists in salute. We'll get through this together. Sun Yiyuan's expression was solemn as he cupped his fists in return. Then, Old Man Sun left in a hurry with Immortal Toya. As the reagent developer, Sun Yiyuan had already made an exception to hire Immortal Toya as chief engineer. Developing reagents was also a frontline job. Immortal Toya was deeply proud of this. Doctors were benevolent, and alchemists were also medical workers. Immortal Toya was naturally duty-bound. And so, in the early morning of November 26th, thanks to Battle's sect and Huagua Water Curtain Group's cooperation, the ins and outs of the whole matter had basically been figured out. Although there were still a lot of doubts about the matter, the general direction had been set. In just a few short hours, Immortal Toya had swiftly developed a reagent to detect the hollow. This speed was jaw-dropping. We've already started work on the reagent, but Mr. Keon, there's something else we need your help with. Not long after Old Man Sun and Immortal Toya left, Audiobook turned to look at Keon again. Keon was a smart man, and actually knew very well what Audiobook wanted him to do. To be honest, he wasn't mentally prepared. Now, Keon's mood was abnormally tangled and nervous. Audiobook saw that the hand he used to light his cigarette couldn't stop trembling. I'm not afraid, I'm just... Kun tried to explain. I understand. Audiobook stepped forward and patted Keon's thick shoulder. Now, the responsibility of revealing the truth had fallen on this man's shoulders. After finishing the cigarette, Kun pressed the cigarette butt into the ashtray at the side. Then, he took a deep breath and tried his best to calm himself down. Mr. Zhua, I'm ready. Kun stood up. Audiobook had already prepared a live stream room on his side, and everything Keon said would be broadcast online to all over the world. In the information age, the power of the internet could not be underestimated. Once the traffic piled up, it could be even more terrifying than the power of live TV. According to the plan, Keon would reveal the ins and outs of the entire incident in two parts. In the first stage, they could not reveal anything about the arcane church for the time being. They needed to let the detection reagents run on the market and distinguish between friend and foe. When the time was right, the second stage would be when the truth would be revealed. Keon would reveal everything that the Foundation had asked him to investigate for the past 20 years. This would also include the truth about the Void Invasion. Of course, in order to protect Keon, Audiobook would protect Keon's identity in the first stage, and would only report the first incident as a researcher in Battle Sect. As a result, in just the morning of the same day, the video of the first stage of the War Sex report spread across the entire internet at lightning speed. Daoist Guang was the head of Battle Sect's online information department. With the help of the current Big Brother in the live streaming world, the speed at which the news spread was simply appalling. In the morning courseware, Wang Ling realized that most people were discussing this matter. The main thing was that in order to let the test reagents circulate and also so that the arcane church wouldn't be suspicious, Audiobook had exaggerated the report a little. In number 60 high school alone, a lot of students and teachers were starting to panic about their hairlines. After class, there was a long queue at the entrance to the men's and women's toilets. It wasn't to go to the toilet, it was to look in the mirror. Is the bald head flu virus that Battle Sect is talking about real? Is there a virus in this world that can make people bald? In class, Hirogwa stroked his beautiful hair to confirm that it was still very healthy. The person who was least worried about this matter was Super Chin, because he had a buzz cut to begin with. For him, to be bald or not to be bald. Actually, there wasn't much of a difference. F***K. I saw some people online say that they're already bald. They lost a lot of hair in one night, and they suspect that they might have this bald head virus. At that moment, someone cried out in alarm as he scrolled through his phone. Where? Let me see. Hearing this, everyone gathered around to watch the excitement. This was just a screenshot of a chat log. It was full of text, and there weren't even any pictures. Wang Ling sighed disinterestedly. Now that the bald head virus was a hot search topic, there would always be people who liked to take advantage of this opportunity to freeload. The internet spread too quickly, and without a full understanding of the unknown, it was very easy for people to believe all kinds of rumors made up by people with ulterior motives and marketing accounts that had popped up online. As it turned out, people were even more afraid of baldness than of coughing and fevers. After Audiobook's announcement, Huagua Water Curtain Group very quickly set up testing sites across the country. They even mobilized all their employees to carry out epidemic prevention work, set up testing sites in major public places, and linked hospitals to isolate suspected people. This kind of reaction speed was already godlike. In fact, the vast majority of people weren't at risk of baldness. All this was just a pretense to identify a hollow spirit. Sitting in his seat, Wang Ling quietly watched the performance from the battle sect. On one side, someone was working hard. On the other side, someone was vigorously spreading rumors for the sake of traffic. In just one morning, ginger and garlic had been sold out in the market, just because a marketing account said that garlic and ginger could prevent hair loss. Wang Ling, I remember that you have garlic-flavored crispy noodle snacks, right? Do you want to contribute some? At that moment, someone turned to look at Wang Ling and asked. Wang Ling's heart was on the verge of collapse. This person, what the hell was he thinking? Chapter 1241. Audiobook's move could be described as catching everyone off guard and catching them off guard. Apart from Battle Sect and Huagua Water Curtain Group, the other two forces who had been fighting over Koloan earlier were also in a daze. Bald head virus, what is this? In the ancient castle, Su Bai vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He asked the Lord of Void for advice, and the Lord's answer was, they could use this matter as a cover to speed up their invasion of the Void. They could let more ethereals join the operation to find the people they wanted to find. For the first time, Su Bai, who used to be a human, had some doubts about the Lord of Void, but he didn't dare disobey him. It was the Lord of Void who had given him everything. Since he could give it to him, if he was unhappy, he wouldn't take it back. At that moment, Su Bai realized for the first time that ethereals had a disadvantage as advanced creatures. They were used to living a carefree life in the world of the Void, and had never experienced the deceit, lies, and mutual deception of the human world. To put it bluntly, this group of ethereals, including the Lord of Void, were a bunch of honest people, through and through. Now, Su Bai could only pray that things would go according to plan, and that this so-called bald head virus storm wouldn't turn out to be some kind of trick. In the short span of one morning, the bald head virus storm swept the world and became a hot topic among the people. How to guard against this terrifying influenza virus instantly became the focus of all cultivators' discussion. Some experts said that washing hands and wearing masks weren't enough, because this bald head virus could also be transmitted through contact. For example, if someone who was already infected with the bald head virus stroked their head, it could also cause hair loss. Wang Ling knew that this was, of course, unreliable nonsense. But the problem was that there really were people who believed this unreliable information. Take number 60 high school as an example. That afternoon, an epidemic prevention team formed by the cultivation police and the local health department came to number 60 high school and took away several bald-headed teachers for investigation. Old Antique explained again and again to the epidemic prevention personnel in thick protective clothing, "Brother, I'm really not sick. I don't have much hair to begin with." In that short moment, Old Antique even had the urge to revert to his gorgeous itinerant true form. In his gorgeous itinerant form, he had long, elegant, waist-length hair. The feeling of being misunderstood was really unbearable. However, the epidemic prevention personnel did not listen to the explanation at all. The order they received was that they would rather kill everything by mistake than let a single one go. Teacher, please cooperate with me first. We will bring you to the testing point later. If there are no problems, you can leave on the same day. Now, please cooperate with the van. The attitude of the epidemic prevention personnel was very firm. Old Antique had no choice but to cooperate. The trunk of the minivan had already been treated to expand the space. When Old Antique entered, he found that the space had already been divided into several individual areas. This is a separate design to prevent cross-infection. Brothers, where did you all come from? Old Antique tried to get close to the people next to him through the transparent space wall. Hey, my name is Shiraishi Sho. I'm a monk. My name is Baldy Pippi, a short and bald author. As suspected cases from all over the country were taken away for testing, the epidemic prevention work was carried out in an orderly manner. Things weren't over after Old Antique was taken away. Just before school was over, everyone was told to stay in school for a school-wide screening. Every student, teacher, and staff member had to be examined. No one could escape. The method of examination was also very simple. It was to spray test reagents on the top of one's head. As long as there was no large-scale hair loss, it was proof that one wasn't infected with the virus, and one could directly receive a free mask before going home. To prevent cross-infection, the tests were carried out according to class. Everyone whose number was called would gather at the entrance of the stadium, where a temporary testing point had already been set up. When it was number 60 High's turn to wait, Wang Ling blinked as he stared at Class 2, which Fang Xing was in. So far, all the tests had been normal, and there had been no abnormalities. As far as he knew, the number of spiritual invasions at the moment was still very limited, and it was very unlikely that someone from number 60 High would be infected. The spiritual spirits needed hosts with strong physical qualities, and generally wouldn't target students who were only at the foundation establishment stage. Up ahead, the teacher in charge of Class 2, Teacher Lu Ruoxu, was in the middle of an examination. This teacher Lu taught mathematics, and had previously taken over Wang Ling's class. He was an expert at the peak late golden core stage, and was proficient in calculations. To be able to become the teacher in charge of an elite class proved that Teacher Lu indeed had some skill. In fact, there weren't many female teachers in the school who could show their face. Teacher Pan was one, and Teacher Lu was another. Don't you feel that the quality of Teacher Lu's teaching has been getting better and better recently? Don't mention it, old Pan is having a headache over this, said Hirogwa. Remember the test 2 days ago? Our class and Class 2 took the test together, and in the end, our average score was 10 points behind Class 2. Was it during the break after the national competition? Said Super Chen. That's right. Old Pan exploded with anger. Even if we didn't take the test, it's still a little unreasonable for the other people's scores to be 10 points behind Class 2's average. Otherwise, with Su Xiao leading the way, the gap would have been even bigger. Hirogwa sighed and said, and it's not just our written test scores that are bad, our class's experimental scores are also lagging behind. Using an induction cooker to refine pills and causing it to explode, what a talent. Just adjust the formula according to the ratio, add water, and it'll be over. When he said this, Hirogwa deliberately spoke very softly so that he and Super Chen could ridicule each other. Although what he said was the truth, if other students heard it, it could easily affect the unity of the class. According to Hirogwa, it seemed that Teacher Lu Ruoxu had recently become enlightened in teaching and had found a new teaching method, which enabled the students in Class 2 to learn new knowledge faster. Wang Ling's class had been in the lead previously, and this sudden fall behind was naturally a huge blow to Teacher Pan. In a short 10 minutes or so, Teacher Lu Ruoxu, the teacher in charge of Class 2, led the inspection of Fang Xing's class. Before leaving, Lu Ruoxu was stopped by an inspector. Teacher, you should also take the test. All right. Teacher Lu very cooperatively sat down. The inspector sprayed a test spray on Teacher Lu Ruoxu's head. Then, a scene that made everyone terrified happened. Teacher Lu Ruoxu's originally beautiful hair suddenly changed dramatically, as if she was suffering from great pain. Her face began to twist and contort, and she couldn't help scratching at her scalp with her hands. It wasn't clear whether her hair had fallen off naturally or had been torn off uncontrollably. In less than 10 seconds, all of Teacher Lu Ruoxu's hair had already fallen off. Quick! Control her! The inspector and the surrounding students and teachers were all startled. Teacher Lu Ruoxu, who had gone berserk, had completely lost control. Boom! Bam! She abruptly stomped on the ground, and her whole body swiftly flew out, crashing through the gym ceiling. A pair of red high-heeled shoes pierced deep into the floor of the stadium like nails. It looked like this hollow spirit was trying to escape. But Wang Ling wouldn't let her do as she pleased. He would use the great gravitation spell. He immediately decided to use the gentle spell as much as possible. Without harming Teacher Lu's body, he would keep her here. But in the next moment, a huge light flashed on the horizon. A meteorite fell from the distant starry sky. It was directly in the direction of number 60 High's gym. The corner of Wang Ling's eye twitched. He had tried his best to control his strength, but it seemed that he had still used a little too much force. Chapter 1242. Wang Ling had indeed held back when he had attacked. He had used a condensed version of the Great Gravitation spell, which was only used on Teacher Lu Ruoxu, who was trying to escape. This was a lock-on skill. But Wang Ling hadn't expected the condensed power to actually be able to trigger a meteorite in space. He really had. He had only used a little bit of his power. But in the end, this was still his fault, and he had to think of a way to get rid of it. Otherwise, when the meteorite fell, the huge explosion might flatten all of number 60 High, no, an entire district. But to be honest, Teacher Lu had indeed become very strong after being possessed by Su Ling. The Su Ling and Teacher Lu had merged perfectly, and Teacher Lu's body had also been strengthened by the Su Ling. For Wang Ling, this was an experiment. Because he had yet to fight the creature on the other side of the Gate of the Void. This was a good opportunity to test the waters. Bzzz. Affected by the Great Gravitation spell, Teacher Lu, who had wanted to escape the gym, fell from the air and crashed heavily into the ground, creating a huge pit. Her expression was ferocious and terrifying, and her eyes were bloodshot and her pupils were silver gray. The Su Ling inside Teacher Lu's body had completely given up on concealing itself. In the face of the crazed Teacher Lu, all the staff at the test station retreated, and several security personnel rushed to the front to cover her. They had to ensure the safety of the remaining students. At that moment, the deafening noise in the gym caused a lot of students to come out of their classrooms and stand in the corridors to watch through the windows. Little Peanut was scared out of his wits and trembled all over. This is me going bald, but I've also become stronger. The students in class 2 were also stupefied, and they all swore to the heavens. Teacher, I won't copy homework anymore. I'll pay attention in class. Boo-hoo, teacher, I won't go to class anymore. I'm deleting the daily life of the immortal king. I don't want to read this lousy book anymore. They had never seen what a crazed Teacher Lu looked like, but the aura she gave off was indeed shocking. This was already no longer a power that a normal Golden Core teacher could wield. What surprised Wang Ling even more was that Teacher Lu actually climbed out of the pit on her own. Being able to stand up under his concentrated version of the Great Gravitation spell gave Wang Ling a clearer understanding of how powerful the Su Ling was. Wang Ling forgot about his own palms. The fighting strength of the hollow spirit attached to Teacher Lu's body was roughly the unit of 2 palms. However, he could not do it directly, because the body was still Mr. Lu's. He had to find a way to force the ethereal out of Mr. Lu's body. The Grand Purification spell was ineffective, because the ethereals were not evil spirits, ghosts, or viruses. They were complete high-level creatures, and the power of the Grand Purification spell could not work on Mr. Lu's body. In this situation, he could only think of another way. He looked up at the sky. The meteorite that had fallen due to the Great Gravity spell was now moving toward him at high speed. On the other side was Mr. Lu, who had gone mad after being possessed by the ethereal spirit. On one side was a falling meteorite. This situation was undoubtedly disastrous for Wang Ling. With so many eyes on him, he couldn't directly take action, and could only resolve this sudden crisis in secret. In the gymnasium, under the effect of the great gravity spell, Teacher Lu struggled to get up from the ground. The condensed version of the spell could not completely restrict Teacher Lu's freedom, but if it was the complete version, it might cause a new meteorite crisis. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. In this situation, he had to force the ethereal spirit out of Teacher Lu's body and stop the meteorite from falling. In Wang Ling's view, there was only one best way. The next moment, Wang Ling turned his finger and strengthened Teacher Lu's bald head. "Look! It's a golden legend," someone at the scene exclaimed. More than one person saw the top of Teacher Lu's head glow. This was the effect of Wang Ling's strengthening. The bright light was as dazzling as the sun that had just risen on the horizon, and people couldn't help feeling that it was a little harsh. A lot of people couldn't help covering their eyes. They didn't know what on earth was going on, but this kind of light was really too harsh. Strengthening Teacher Lu's bald head was just the first step in Wang Ling's plan. Right now, Teacher Lu was probably already the toughest woman in the universe. The next step was for Wang Ling to personally control Teacher Lu to fight the meteorite. In the blink of an eye, Teacher Lu's entire body shot out of the gymnasium like a rocket launched straight into the sky. With her dazzling bald head, she charged unstoppably toward the huge meteorite that was trying to break through the atmosphere. The ethereal spirit attached to Teacher Lu's body realized that the body it was controlling wasn't listening to its commands at all, and it couldn't help swearing. Ethereals didn't normally swear, but they were very good at learning. The ethereal spirit in Teacher Lu's body had inadvertently learned this when Teacher Lu reprimanded the students on a daily basis. A few seconds before it hit the meteorite, the ethereal spirit felt fear in its heart. It didn't know that Wang Ling had already strengthened Teacher Lu's bald head, so it couldn't make an accurate judgment of the current situation. It had already been in Teacher Lu's body for a long time, and it could be said that it had already achieved a perfect fusion. Once Teacher Lu's body was injured, it would also suffer an equal amount of damage. It absolutely couldn't let that happen. It had to stay alive to complete the task given to it by the Lord of the Void. Thus, after an intense internal struggle and seeing that it was about to hit the meteorite, the ethereal spirit attached to Teacher Lu's body finally clenched its teeth and gave up on Teacher Lu's body. In the next moment, there was a huge roar in the sky as the huge meteorite collided with Teacher Lu, who had been launched from the ground. Struck by the toughest woman in the universe, the meteorite was smashed to pieces in the atmosphere. Before the broken rocks could hit the ground, they were burned to ashes. Wang Ling controlled Teacher Lu to land safely, while his primordial spirit left his body to capture the ethereal spirit that had just broken free from Teacher Lu's body. The ethereal spirit had luckily escaped and was looking for a new host. At that moment, it saw Wang Ling with his primordial spirit, a very strong person. The ethereal spirit was instantly excited. To be able to leave the body with his primordial spirit at such a young age, his physical quality was definitely top-notch. This was trillions of times stronger than the female teacher it had attached to previously. "Kid, it's your bad luck to run into me," the ethereal spirit said excitedly, and without saying a word, it directly plunged into Wang Ling's primordial spirit. At the same time, Wang Ling swiftly withdrew his primordial spirit. His plan to use his primordial spirit as bait to capture the ethereal spirit had been a complete success. This ethereal spirit had run into him. Just his bad luck. Chapter 1243. After entering Wang Ling's body, the void spirit's first step was to take control of the brain, seize the spirit space, and then start to devour Wang Ling's will. Every human cultivator who was invaded by the arcane spirits would face this step. This was also one of the reasons why these human cultivators behaved so erratically and their temperaments changed so much. The invasion officially began. An ordinary human spirit space couldn't be considered big. This was related to a person's cultivation level. For example, the female teacher surnamed Lu from before had a spirit space the size of a rented apartment, which in the void spirit's view was so small that he couldn't even stretch his legs. But the advantage was that it was easier for him to control a small spirit space. As long as it wasn't ridiculously big, it was generally fine. Cultivators on Earth weren't ridiculously big. A true immortal spirit space was only the size of 10 football fields. Full of confidence, the void spirit snuck into Wang Ling's spirit space. Then, he was completely stupefied by the scene in front of him. Because the spirit space he saw was a sea of stars. The sky was full of stars and countless planets orbited here. They reflected each other's beauty and radiated dazzling brilliance, and the void spirit couldn't see the end of it. This was the universe? The void spirit was instantly scared out of his wits. How could a normal human cultivator's spirit space contain the entire universe? Wasn't this even more outrageous than their great supreme lord of the void? No, he had to get out of here as soon as possible. The void spirit realized that something wasn't right. He couldn't stay in this human youngster's body any longer, and had to return to the void as soon as possible to report this matter to the Lord of the Void. No one could have expected that a planet as harmless as Earth would actually hide such a cosmic-level monster, but at that moment, it was already too late. Because choosing to enter Wang Ling's body had been a mistake from the beginning. The void spirit thought that he could still escape, but the truth was that he had been locked in a human cage. Wang Ling's body was like the iron wall of a cage, firmly locking him inside. You can't escape. At that moment, a cold and indifferent voice rang out in the universe. It didn't know where it came from, but it seemed to be the voice of the universe itself, affecting the pulse of the universe, and the void spirit felt a great pressure when it spoke. A white-haired youth that was condensed from countless particles of light appeared here. You're not him. Who the hell are you? Su Ling looked at the young man in front of him nervously. Although this young man looked exactly the same as the owner of the body outside, Su Ling could still tell that they were not the same person. I am his shadow. Wang Ying opened her eyes and replied indifferently. You think you can destroy me? Su Ling ignored it. Even if you have the ability to trap me here, you may not be able to kill me. You lowly creatures. They don't know the meaning of life. Su Ling smiled. He had no physical body. Like light and wind, it was very difficult to capture, and even more impossible to kill. Only spells can defeat spells. I'm sorry to tell you that I don't have a physical body either. Wang Ying smiled. The next moment, his body quickly disintegrated under Su Ling's nose. In the blink of an eye, the black shadow pressed down, and the dazzling stars were shrouded by the endless shadow. Wang Ying disintegrated his body, forming a large-scale shadow howl that covered the sky and the earth, as if it wanted to swallow the whole universe together. The sight in front of Su Ling's eyes quickly dimmed. In a very short time, he had been swallowed by the endless black shadow. He felt as if he had fallen into a black hole. However, he was not afraid. He just felt that Wang Ying's actions were meaningless. 596" so what? Su Ling laughed. The next moment, Wang Ying said, nothing, but this way, I can kill you. He dispelled the shadow howl and looked at Su Ling, who had been coated by his black shadow. Su Ling did not have a physical body, but at this moment, after being coated by Wang Ying, everything was different. The high-level life form that they were proud of was painted with the black shadow at this moment. At that moment, Wang Ying could easily see Su Ling's true appearance. They were like silk ribbons that could extend infinitely and float in the air, giving off the feeling of the Dove chocolate commercial back then. It was only then that Su Ling realized that his noble body had been defiled, and he started to get angry. He was like an angry cat, and even the shape of his body undulated like sound waves. What did you do to my body? He roared as he charged at Wang Ying. Wang Ying didn't care about a mere combat strength of 2 hands. Apart from the fact that he didn't have the king's eye, his battle strength was almost the same as Wang Ling's. The Su Ling in front of him could be easily dealt with just 2 slaps, but Wang Ying couldn't really kill him. His purpose in coating him was actually to warn the Su Ling in front of him. As long as you fell into this man's body, it didn't matter what stage you were in your life form, you could still be killed and destroyed. Facing Su Ling's attack, Wang Ying calmly raised his hand, and with 15% of his strength, he accurately slapped the ribbon, flying at him. The Su Ling immediately screamed in pain, and at the same time, a black substance sprayed out of his body. Wang Ying deduced that it was probably Su Ling's blood. Su Ling's blood was originally colorless, but after being coated by Wang Ying's shadow, even the blood was dyed black. You're no longer a higher form of life. You already have color and form, and you can even be hit by me. Wang Ying looked at the Su Ling. He didn't look like he was looking at a higher form of life. It was the look of someone staring at trash. You should have already felt the fear of death from that slap just now. Even if you were to return to the Su Ling now, your lord would only think of you as an alien, and would mercilessly erase you. These two short sentences made the Su Ling feel even more terrified. He completely believed what Wang Ying said. Given his current ugly appearance, even if he went back, he would definitely be ostracized. I'll give you a chance. Answer my question. After that, I'll remove the coating on your body and let you go, Wang Ying said to the Su Ling. This Su Ling was already at his wit's end. What do you want to ask, Wang Ying? What on earth are you looking for when you invaded Earth? The Su Ling fell silent. He was wondering what kind of question it was. Sooner or later, this matter would have to come out in the open. As long as it didn't involve the Lord of the Void, he could answer it. We're looking for the key to the Void Gate. Only the great Son of the Void is qualified to be this key, the Su Ling said. Can't you open the gate? Why do you need a key? Wang Ying was puzzled. The Su Ling, we agreed that you would only ask one question. Sorry, it's my fault. Wang Ying apologized. The next moment, he raised his hand. Then you can go die. After saying that, Wang Ying's palm struck out, 200% power. The huge palm force shook the universe. Chapter 1244. You're pretty ruthless. Wang Ling's voice reverberated in the spiritual space, which was as vast as the universe. I won't allow anyone to defile this place. Wang Ying's voice was cold. He turned around and his whole body turned into a black shadow, once again merging with Wang Ling's spiritual space. He was decisive in killing. Wang Ling admitted that he was far inferior to Wang Ying in terms of character. Although Wang Ying was his shadow, his personality was very different from his. Wang Ling named the slap Wang Ying had used on the void spirit just now, "No one recognizes me." He felt that this was very much in line with Wang Ying's personality. If it had been Wang Ling, he probably wouldn't have killed this void spirit. Because Wang Ling wouldn't care about a small bug, the blockade of the spiritual space actually gave Wang Ling a very good opportunity to play with this bug he had just caught. But unfortunately, the situation was urgent, and Wang Ling didn't have much time. Although Wang Ying had killed this void spirit, at least Wang Ling had learned why they wanted to invade Earth. To find the key. Wang Ling rubbed his chin as he carefully pondered what this void spirit had said. No one had ever truly opened the void gate, and since ancient times, anyone who crossed it would undoubtedly die. Master Li Shaokai and Li Huanran had even paid the price with their lives. If he put the whole incident together, Wang Ling felt that there might be a possibility. That was, the void spirits might have long had designs on Earth, but unfortunately, they couldn't open the void gate themselves. Back then, Master Li Shaokai had broken the void gate by force and inadvertently opened a crack, which in fact was a signal for the void spirits to invade. Some of them had come out of the crack. Unfortunately, it was far from enough to achieve their goal of invading Earth with just a small portion of the arcane church. Therefore, the void spirits had to find the so-called Son of the Void, and use him as the key to completely open the void gate. This was just Wang Ling's conjecture. But generally speaking, Wang Ling thought it was reasonable. He typed this conjecture into text and sent it to Audiobook. He would leave the rest to him to handle. This hollow spirit had called itself a high-level creature, but in the end, Wang Ying had destroyed it with 2 slaps. Wang Ling felt that the ruler behind this hollow spirit might not be that strong. Teacher Lu's incident caused a lot of chaos in number 60 high. Fortunately, apart from Teacher Lu, no one else in number 60 high who had been invaded by my Su Ling had been found. When Headmaster Chen arrived, Teacher Lu was already under the control of the epidemic prevention personnel. He wanted to go up and check on Teacher Lu's condition, but he was stopped by an epidemic prevention worker. Headmaster Chen, it's best if you don't look. You don't have much hair to begin with. If it gets stained, it'll be terrible. Why did he suddenly go berserk? Headmaster Chen couldn't understand. Other places have similar reactions, but it's not as serious as Teacher Lu's. It is said that the virus and reagents have an intensified reaction, causing a certain degree of stimulation to the human body. It depends on each person's degree of acceptance, the staff said. How many cases have been diagnosed? Headmaster Chen asked with concern. The anti-epidemic worker replied telepathically, currently, there are more than 1,200 confirmed cases in Songhai City, and 3,678 suspected cases. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be as serious in other places. It's only in our city. Wang Ling had intercepted this telepathic spell. On the way back to class, Wang Ling had a new idea. Judging from the report from the epidemic prevention personnel just now, the number of ethereal invaders on Earth was still very limited, and the vast majority of them were gathered in Songhai City. Then, did this mean that the ethereal side had already locked onto the approximate location of the Son of the Void? This legendary Son of the Void. Perhaps he was within Songhai City. As expected of Shifu, Audiobook very quickly received Wang Ling's message. He praised Wang Ling for the clarity of his deduction, but it still needed evidence to support it. Those who had been detected had already been quarantined at the first possible moment. The incident with Teacher Lu served as a great warning to Audiobook. Immortal Zhenyuan and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch had worked together to draw up a sealing talisman. The moment someone was detected, they would immediately seal them. Then, they would be directly sent into a space isolation cage that they had set up, directly preventing the ethereal from trying to jump out of their bodies to find a new host. The situation seemed to be under control. But Audiobook was well aware that this battle had in fact only just begun. If they couldn't find the Son of the Void first, and the ethereal found him first, then once the Void Gate opened, it would be a huge disaster for the entire Earth. Although they had already found more than 1,200 cases, this definitely wasn't all of them. They were very good learners, and after the first wave of trouble, they would definitely be on guard and wouldn't be so easily deceived again. Do you have anything to say about the Son of the Void? On the car heading towards the frontline epidemic prevention station, Audiobook asked Keon. In fact, I wasn't the only investigator who was sent to investigate this matter, but now it looks like I might be the only one who survived. The Foundation must have already found some clues. Unless we can directly find someone from the Foundation, organizing a search for the Son of the Void is like looking for a needle in a haystack, said Keon. As he spoke, he glanced at Audiobook's phone out of the corner of his eye several times. He marveled at the intelligence of the person who had texted Audiobook, who had caught a ethereal with their bare hands and even asked about the true purpose of the Void invasion. To Keon, this was simply inconceivable. Who on earth was this person? He was too strong. It looks like this matter is becoming more and more troublesome. Furthermore, we've already run into trouble. As Audiobook drove, he looked in the rearview mirror. Behind their Wuling Hongguang van, there was a black car following them closely. Immortal Zhenyuan and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch were currently on the front line to assist in suppressing the ethereals, so Audiobook and Keon were the only ones in the car. The other side is very strong. In the front passenger seat, Keon sensed the situation from a distance. He didn't think they would be able to handle the situation in front of them with just his and Audiobook's battle strength. According to Keon's judgment, the person sitting in the black car was undoubtedly the street sweeper. It's them. They're here to avenge Snake. As soon as he said this, Audiobook saw a black shadow suddenly jump out of the sunroof in the rearview mirror. The other party's jumping ability was astonishing, and it directly leaped over their van. Then, it stuck out its neck and half lay on the windshield, hanging its head upside down as it looked at them. What terrified Keon the most was, this person clearly wasn't Snake. Instead, it gave off the same scent as Snake. Chapter 1245. With deep dark circles and sunken eye sockets, coupled with his dangling red hair, Snake lay on the windshield like a ghost. The next moment, he stretched out his hand and his sharp nails directly pierced through the windshield. The entire side of the reinforced glass shattered in a split second, turning into glass shards that drifted into the air. Then, they turned into particles of light and swiftly disappeared. Audiobook and Keon reacted quickly. Almost at the same time that Snake launched his attack, the two of them swiftly unbuckled their seatbelts, opened the car doors, and leapt out on their spirit swords. Who on earth is this person? Audiobook stared at the young man in front of him, his eye-catching fiery red hair falling to his waist. He was bare-chested, revealing his huge muscles and the perfect lines of his muscles. It's Snake, yes, but this body definitely isn't his. Keon frowned. The aura of this resurrected Snake was many times stronger than the one Keon had known. Countless cultivators nearby were alarmed by the scene of a fierce fight on the overpass. Many abandoned their vehicles and flew away on their swords, while some passers-by also chose to call the police. Choosing to evacuate at a time like this was definitely a wise move, but in Audiobook's view, there wasn't much point in calling the police. Snake's aura was already different. Even if the cultivation police sent someone over, they wouldn't be his match. Keon, have you heard of the Void? At that moment, Snake was standing on the roof of a car. He gazed at Keon, enjoying the feeling immensely. Bang! A gunshot rang out in the distance. A sniper rifle bullet formed from powerful spirit power swiftly pierced through the air and was aimed at Snake's head. Someone from the police has arrived? Audiobook was startled. He hadn't expected the nearby area to react so quickly. In the face of the speeding sniper rifle bullet, Snake stood motionless. In fact, his gaze had long since come into contact with the trajectory of the sniper rifle. Spirit power bullet? Do you think you can hurt me? Snake sneered. The bullet accurately hit the spot between his eyebrows, and like a clay ox disappearing into the sea, it was swallowed into Snake's body. Devour the Void. This was a new ability he had gained after becoming a higher life form. As long as he willed it, everything that wanted to pass through his body, including spells, hidden weapons, and all kinds of flying objects, would be devoured by him and completely disintegrated. Snake could never forget the scene of him being pierced in the head by a needle when he became a human. And now, he had become a hollow spirit. These flashy feints were already meaningless to him. He has become an ethereal. Kun quickly realized what was happening. As an investigator, he had secretly made contact with the ethereals, and even though he wasn't 100% sure, he was convinced that Snake was no longer human. What's so good about being human? Keon, you will never understand the thrill of transcending the limits of life. Snake sneered. You know, it really feels good not to be human. Perhaps this is the ultimate evolution of life form. As soon as he said that, Snake rose high into the air and looked down at Audiobook and Keon as if they were two ants. In a very short period of time, it was as if time had come to a standstill, and even the air had stagnated. An astonishing pressure erupted from Snake's body. With a deafening sound, the viaduct instantly broke, and one car after another sank into the soil like sand in a mudslide. Is this the power of a hollow spirit? Both Audiobook and Keon were under tremendous pressure. If it wasn't for the long johns he was wearing, Audiobook felt that he wouldn't be able to withstand this power at all. This pressure was different from spiritual pressure, but it was even more frightening than the spiritual pressure of an earth cultivator. For a brief moment, Audiobook even felt like he was losing his mind. It's no use, a golden core cultivator. A false true immortal. He's no match for me. Snake was full of confidence. He stood high up in the sky, and his arrogant eyes were filled with disdain. It was as if he were playing with two ants. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Audjwa swiftly activated the 33-path primordial qi. This was the technique Wang Ling had bestowed upon him in Chapter 679. Audjwa had been painstakingly cultivating every day, constantly using the 33-path primordial qi to accumulate spirit power, and it finally came in handy at this moment. A technique to accumulate psionic powers? Snake smiled. It wasn't like he hadn't seen this kind of technique before, but it was usually stored up and released at a critical moment to gamble with one's life. After releasing all of it, one's realm would advance by leaps and bounds for a short period of time. But Audjwa was only at the golden core stage, and there was a huge gap between them to begin with. So what if he released all of it? Snake looked at Audjwa contemptuously, wanting to see what on earth he was up to. Open the floodgates. With Audjwa's explosive shout, his aura began to surge. The spirit power that he had normally accumulated in his golden core was now gushing out like a tide. Until this moment. Keon frowned as he sensed that something wasn't right. A heavenly Tao technique? He started to be astonished by Audjwa's 33-path primordial qi. An ordinary technique to store spirit power could only store dreams of one realm at most, which meant that after Audjwa released his power, he could at most grow to the nascent soul stage's battle strength. But the 33-path primordial qi in Audjwa's body could store up to 33 realms of spirit power. That was to say, Audjwa's body contained the spirit power of 33 giant reservoirs. Of course, given Audjwa's daily savings and Wang Ling's occasional pointers, his reservoir of spirit power had long since reached saturation. Audjwa had never found a suitable opportunity to use it. And now, the time was completely ripe. You, a golden core cultivator, actually have a heavenly Tao technique? Snake looked at Audjwa in astonishment. When he had still been human, he had also painstakingly pursued heavenly Tao, but he hadn't even touched the hem of its robe. He had once been a cultivator from Earth who had worked hard to cultivate in pursuit of the power of heavenly Tao. Snake laughed self-deprecatingly in his heart. For him, it was no longer important whether or not he had heavenly Tao. He had already become a higher life form. Even if it was heavenly Tao, he didn't care about it at all. Audjwa, you've given me a good chance to prove myself. Snake fixed his gaze on Audjwa with a fierce expression. I will kill you with my own hands and hang your head high above the gate of the void, to prove that I am already above the heavenly Tao. Chapter 1246. Snake and Cohen couldn't be said to be familiar with each other. But as a colleague who had worked together in the same unit, and in addition, Cleon had secretly investigated Snake's information. He felt that Snake had become a completely different person after transforming into a void spirit. Snake had become even more arrogant, and could even be said to have become more conceited. After completely becoming a void spirit, even his personality has changed. This could be considered a new discovery for Cohen, and he believed that there were two types of personality changes. The first was an earth cultivator who had been invaded by a void spirit. After merging with a void spirit, under the premise that their mental space was controlled, even their personality would be taken over by the void spirit. There didn't seem to be any abnormalities in their behavior, but it was still quite different from usual. Number 60 high school's teacher Lu was the best example. The second type was Snake, who was in front of him. He hadn't been invaded by a void spirit, but had accepted it of his own accord, allowing his soul to completely change and become a void spirit himself. Cohen had been investigating the void all this time, and had even made some silent contact with them. But this was indeed his first time exchanging blows with a void spirit. Standing here as a false true immortal, he could already feel immense pressure, let alone Audjwa. Mr. Joie, what are our chances of winning? He instinctively wanted to persuade Audjwa to retreat. Judging from the astonishing pressure that Snake was exerting, even if Audjwa, who was at the golden core stage, was added to the mix, it didn't seem like they would be able to completely reverse the situation. But at that moment, Audjwa shouted, "Open the floodgates." Hearing this, Cohen was shaken to the core. Mr. Joie? He turned around in disbelief and stared in astonishment at Audua's live performance. The power of heavenly Tao. At this point, Cohen was completely stupefied. The expression on his face was exactly the same as Snake's when he saw this scene. A golden core stage cultivator actually possessed a Heaven's Path cultivation technique. This was simply unimaginable. This war sect's people were simply abnormal. Was this still a sect made up of people? At that moment, Cohen's emotions were exceptionally complicated. Excitement, astonishment, doubt, all kinds of emotions were intertwined. He had long since known that Audua wasn't a simple person. But now, his impression of Audua in his heart needed a major update. A tremendous amount of spirit power gushed out of the tiny golden core in Audua's body like a landslide, a tsunami, or a flood breaching a dam. In a short period of time, Audua's aura skyrocketed. Of the 33 giant reservoirs of spirit power, Audua had only unsealed 6 of them, but he had already achieved astonishing results. The reservoir was good, but it couldn't be completely released at once. At the moment, Audua was already at his limit for releasing 6 people in a single round. He needed to wait for his body to adapt before he could proceed with the next round of unsealing. Unlocking the seals of the 6 reservoirs would increase his cultivation level to the false true immortal stage. His current battle prowess wasn't any weaker than Calhoun's. However, it would be a little difficult for the two of them to defeat Snake together. Miss Bai Qiao. If I die, no one will test the game for you in the future. At that moment, Audua roared into the air, if we don't act now, when will we? As soon as he finished speaking. On the horizon, a beam of brown light lit up and shot straight into the sky. He then swiftly turned into a shooting star and sped towards Audua. The scabbard of the peachwood sword. To better protect Audua, Wang Ling had added Audua's name to the scabbard. But Audua hadn't dared order it around. If it wasn't for the critical situation at the moment, he absolutely wouldn't have dared disturb this female otaku playing games in the sect. It had to be said that Bai Qiao reacted very quickly. After hearing Audua's summon, she almost immediately pressed the pause button on the game and flew into Audua's palm at a speed faster than the speed of light. The scabbard of the peachwood sword? Snake laughed again. He had never seen anyone whose weapon of choice was actually a scabbard, and one made of peachwood at that. He felt that he could turn a scabbard like this into flying ash with a single breath. Snake had thought that Audua would take out something amazing. But he was greatly disappointed in the end. Audua, it seems your performance is over. It's my turn now. In the air, Snake spread his arms, and Audua could see an invisible mass of energy seemingly gathering in his palms. This was a super dense mass of energy. The moment Snake condensed it, the energy was extremely dense. The space nearby couldn't bear the pressure and started to tear apart. This was a variation of the void-devouring skill. Anyone who came into contact with this mass of energy would instantly disappear. Devoured by the void. So in Snake's view, no matter what Audua took out, it would be of no use. What was more, what he had just summoned was a scabbard that looked absolutely useless. Audua. Crawl for me. Snake laughed out loud. The next moment, he pushed out with both hands and actually took the initiative to stuff the void energy mass into the space fissure. Before Audua could react, in the blink of an eye, 2 energy masses surrounded him from both sides, trapping him in the middle. This was Snake's ability to use the energy mass's ability to devour space to achieve this instantaneous effect. Oh no. On the side, Kun's expression changed dramatically. No matter how fast Audua reacted, there was no way he could stop this kind of encirclement. In a moment of desperation, Kun sent out a wave of spirit power from his hand. He wanted to send Audua flying. In order to break free from the encirclement of the energy masses. But Snake's target wasn't just Audua. Kun, crawl for me too. He sneered and used the same trick. Another 2 balls of void energy that could devour everything locked onto Cleon's position. In Snake's view, this was already a sure win. His mission was actually to kill Kun. Audjua was just a buy one get one free bonus. He was an important figure in Battle's sect. By killing Audjua, he could prove that he was above the heavenly Tao. And in doing so, he could challenge the entire Battle sect. He could wipe away the humiliation of being stabbed to death by a flying needle in front of Battle sect's mountain gate. But in the next moment, something unexpected happened. Just as the two void energy masses were about to collide, Audjua and Kun's positions suddenly shifted backward, and in the blink of an eye, shifted several coordinates. When the void energy masses collided, there was a loud explosion, and two huge wormholes appeared. Audjua heaved a slight sigh of relief. At long last, he had dodged this calamity. Ever since he had noticed Snake's ability to devour space, Audjua had been on high alert. So the instant Snake condensed the energy mass, at the same time, Audjua was ready. He used Bai Qiao to cut off a section of space to achieve the effect of teleportation. Now, it was time for him to counterattack. Audjua took a deep breath. In the air, he swiftly assumed the posture of throwing a javelin, and abruptly threw Bai Qiao out of his hand. This was an attack aimed directly between Snake's eyebrows. Audjua, there's no way I'm going to fall in the same place. In the face of this attack, Snake appeared very confident, and couldn't stop laughing wildly. His body had changed with this attack, and anything that got close to him would be devoured clean by the void. He even took the initiative to stick his head out to meet Bai Qiao's attack. He was going to devour the entire scabbard. Then, in the next moment, there was a splat. There was a sound. Bai Qiao turned into a stream of brown light and pierced Snake's head again. Chapter 1247. It was a familiar scene, and the same way he died. Snake's eyes widened in disbelief at what was happening in front of him. Impossible. I am a great citizen of the void. Before he died, Snake used the last of his strength to say his last words. Then, there was a huge explosion in the sky. The nearby space was destroyed along with it, forming a massive wormhole. This was an explosion that occurred after a hollow died, and it was extremely powerful. Any cultivator from Earth below the level of true immortal would undoubtedly die in the aftermath. Looking at this, Audjua and Qion trembled. This was yet another discovery about the hollow. Without a physical body, a pure hollow wouldn't explode after death. But if an Earth cultivator who had been invaded by a hollow died along with it, it would cause an explosion similar to a backlash from the void. So if they wanted to kill a hollow, the safest way was to force the hollow out of the human body, and then think of a way to kill it. Audjua felt that it was necessary to report this to the front line. If the arcane church decided to give up, the cultivators on Earth who had already been invaded would be natural time bombs. Mr. Qion, do you have any impression of the person Snake is occupying? Audjua took out the notebook in his suit jacket. Using the impression projection spell, he projected Snake's changed appearance onto the notebook. Audjua was already very familiar with this impression projection spell. A person with a rich imagination could even use this technique to create a comic, and it wouldn't be a dream at all. He could go wherever he wanted to go. I never thought Snake would actually give up his human identity and become a hollow. Qion sighed endlessly. Staring at Audjua's portrait, he made a simple deduction about Snake's situation. After his first death, he must have used some method to become a hollow. Then, he invaded this man's body. This man. I seem to have seen him somewhere before, but I'm not too familiar with him. Could he be someone from your foundation? I know most of my colleagues in the foundation, but I've never seen this person. Qion shook his head. Unless what? Unless he's one of the 7 great envoys behind the scenes of the foundation. One of the 7 great envoys. Audjua mused. Indeed, the possibility of this inference could not be ruled out. Even putting aside the fact that Snake had become a phantom, Audjua and Qion had to admit that the owner of this body that Snake had found was very strong. This could be seen from the quality of his physical body. Snake was not a random target to invade. There must be a mastermind behind all of this. At this moment, the blasted wormhole in the sky was gradually shrinking. Spatial cracks have a self-repairing mechanism, but this repair is very slow. For a wormhole like this, it would take at least a day for it to completely recover. Audra saw that the police officers in the nearby area had already arrived on spirit swords and were holding immortal leftovers. They needed to set up a cordon here and temporarily seal off the airspace in this area. Director Joie. A team leader of the cultivation police officers approached Audra and bowed respectfully in front of him. I'm in such a disguise, you can still recognize me? Audra was astonished. The main thing is that the criminal who self-destructed just now screamed very loudly. Hearing this, Audra smiled. I'm already wanted by the Straits Alliance, aren't you going to arrest me? I wouldn't dare. The team leader shook his head. From the beginning, I felt that there was some misunderstanding, or perhaps it was a setup. Director Joie has made outstanding contributions. How could he have killed Warden Liang? Audra secretly breathed a sigh of relief at this team leader's words. He felt very lucky to have run into a reasonable person. If he had run into some sort of iron blockhead, there would have been no way to clean up this matter. I still need to go to the front line, so I'll have to trouble you to keep my matter a secret, brother. Audra patted this team leader on the shoulder. Oh, that's right, brother, what's your name? My name is Lu Liang. The team leader with the surname Lu saluted again. Audra nodded and cupped his fists together with Keon. Then I wish Captain Lu good luck. Good luck. Captain Lu saluted back. Because his appearance had already been exposed, Audra changed his appearance again before he left. This time, he was even uglier than Kushuan's previous appearance. As he left, the team leader called Lu Liang called out to Audra again. Director Joie, we found this. We don't know if it's something that Director Joie abandoned. Lu Liang handed over the item. It was a round pearl the size of a palm that gave off a brilliant light. Audra sniffed it, and was surprised that it actually had snake scent on it. This might be the key to why Snake was able to become a hollow spirit. Keon narrowed his eyes and spoke to Audra telepathically. Taking the pearl, Audra once again thanked this attentive Captain Lu. Then, he and Keon turned into two long rainbows and disappeared into the sky. Gazing at Audra's disappearing figure, Lu Liang waved excitedly in farewell. He had been an Audra fan for a long time. Meeting his idol made him feel as if he had instantly become the happiest person in the world. Captain Lu, the area has basically been cordoned off. Now we're going to tally the casualties. I'll handle this part. Lu Liang nodded and said. He felt that it was better to do some things himself. Many of the police officers in their area were Audra's fans. Who knew what kind of outrageous things these people would do to protect Audra, but he was different. He was a rational fan. It would be a little too fake if he completely covered up the matter. Lu Liang had already thought of a very good way to cover for Audra while also handling this matter seamlessly. Nowadays, even if you wanted to protect your idol, you had to be careful. Otherwise, it might attract even more trouble. It should be noted that it was not uncommon for fans to act like idols on the internet. Director Joie, watch me. Lu Liang looked in the direction Audra had left, full of confidence in himself. Elsewhere, on his way to the epidemic prevention station, Audra received news from Battle Sec's intelligence department. The result was just as Keon had expected. It's just as you thought. Audra frowned. Who on earth is this person? The president of Mishio Nation's Apollo Charity Association, Apollo Deliman. And this person's true identity is the sun emissary of the Foundation's 7 major ambassadors. It's actually him. Now, Keon finally recalled the identity of this person. He sighed. Apollo Deliman, this is a man with a strong sense of justice. The charity association he established spends a lot of money every year to help people in distress. He's indeed like the sun, radiating his own light and heat. In Keon's opinion, Deliman was a very low-key person who contributed silently but rarely appeared in the news. Thus, Keon had always been very vague about Deliman's face, but he was especially familiar with this name. Deliman was one of his idols. He marveled at Deliman's character. It was also Deliman who had told him. Chapter 1248. In the independent mental space of the Foundation. This time, the 7 emissaries were not all present. Only 5 of them were present. The sun's emissary is dead. The fool has betrayed us, Subai, who was sitting in the seat of judgment, said. The former was an unshakable fact, while Subai had yet to find clear evidence for the latter. However, he felt that the emissary's behavior was a little strange. Therefore, to be on the safe side, he actively kicked the fool's emissary out of the group chat. Who is he? Moon was curious. No one knew each other's identity. Now that the sun's emissary was dead, the focus was not on how or why he died. Instead, they were more concerned about his true identity. That sounded a little ironic. Subai sneered inwardly. Humans were indeed creatures filled with curiosity and arrogance. However, it was indeed harmless to reveal his identity now. He was not in a hurry to speak. Instead, he looked in the direction of the star emissary and asked, Star, you have the ability of prophecy. Do you still not know Sun's identity? Star was silent. He or she pondered for dozens of seconds before speaking. I observed the sky at night and saw stars falling, so I knew that the sun's emissary was in danger. But I don't know his true identity. At this point, Subai raised an eyebrow meaningfully. He did not hide it anymore. Subai, the sun's emissary's true identity is Apollo Deliman. Everyone, it's him. It was the same reaction as Kun when he heard the name. In the mental space, everyone except Subai was more or less surprised. Moon observed a moment of silence for the emissary. She made a praying gesture. He's a good man. We all know he's a good man, Tank said. To everyone's surprise, he changed his irritable attitude from before. Instead, he spoke in an uncharacteristically gentle tone. Although I don't agree with him, everyone can see what he and his people have done. We should avenge Sun. So now, we need to know who killed him. At this moment, Subai, who was sitting in the seat of judgment, knew that the meeting had finally reached its climax. He did not hesitate to announce the man who killed Sunday. With a light turn of the magic ball, a man's holographic projection immediately appeared in front of everyone. You all know this person, right? Subai's voice was calm. He and Tank had worked together to stir up the emotions of the others. It's him. Joie. Tank angrily pounded the table. In fact, he already knew the answer last night. But as an outstanding actor, Tank had dedicated his entire life's worth of acting skills. It could be said that his performance was thorough, meticulous, and incisive. The manic Tank's behavior surprised everyone. They never expected him to have such a gentle side to him. Deliman has always been passionate about charity. He devoted his life's efforts to helping those suffering. Tank's voice sounded a little choked up. This was a technique that he had spent the whole night honing. Anyway, in this spiritual space, everyone was a mass of black shadows, and their expressions could not be seen clearly. Therefore, he only needed to concentrate on the shaping of his voice. When Subai heard War Chariot sobbing, he sighed inwardly. He felt that Tank had the potential to become the champion of his voice in the arena. Everyone, we must do something for the sun. We can't let the corpse of this great philanthropist be left out in the cold forever in a foreign country. Tank stood up excitedly. Kill Joie. Avenge the sun. The moon emissary had always been very gentle, but she was easily swayed by her emotions. As a nun sent to the mortal world by God, she probably shouldn't have such a strong desire for revenge. But now, guided by Tank's emotions, she also felt pity for the dead Deliman. So very quickly, the moon emissary also expressed her opinion. This devil must be punished. God will definitely give him the punishment he deserves. Her words were very subtle, but the truth was that she was already on Tank's side. The general trend was set. This meeting was a war of condemnation for Deliman, the Sun emissary. The perfect teamwork between Su Bai and Tank evoked the emotions of almost everyone present. This was also the first time that everyone had spoken in unison. Then, as everyone has voted, this foundation meeting has voted to crusade against Audiobook. Unanimous. Su Bai, who had the overall situation under his control, dropped his gavel from his seat. Everything was going according to his plan, including Snake's plan to invade the body of the Sun emissary after becoming a phantom, including Snake's plan to seek revenge on Audiobook and Kiorn after fusing perfectly with the body. Of course, there was also Snake's death in battle and Audiobook picking up the void magic ball. All of this was within Su Bai's expectations. Now, there's only one step left before we start preparing for war. In the ancient castle, Su Bai tasted the red medicine soup. He wanted to borrow the hands of the other people in the foundation to kill Audiobook. After obtaining the void magic ball, Audiobook would become a phantom. At the Epidemic Prevention Center station in the western suburbs of Songhai City. Like an eggshell, an enormous barrier perfectly formed an impenetrable defense line. There was only one entrance and exit to the barrier, and everyone who went in and out had to be tested. Inside the barrier was a temporary isolation hospital created using the star-shifting spell and the construction spell. It could accommodate tens of thousands of people. All the wards were independent spaces that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Immortal Jinyuan had worked together to open up. As soon as Audiobook and Kiorn entered the command center after being tested, Silyanjinren, who had been waiting outside the building for a long time, quickly approached them. "This is bad." Silyanjinren's expression was a little unsightly. "Tell me what happened." Audiobook took Silyanjinren to a secret place. "I just received news that Senior Immortal has been detained by the main alliance," Silyanjinren said. Audiobook frowned slightly at this news. Currently, Battle's sect was on the same side as Huagua Water Curtain Group, and was completely on the head of state side. So it was certain that the people who had detained grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were the second force in the main alliance. Senior Immortal won't fall for it so easily. Maybe he's thinking of a way to lure out the mastermind behind this second force. Audiobook's thoughts raced as he felt that there was something fishy behind this. Senior Immortal is right, there's no need to worry for the time being. I have something that I need Senior Immortal Toya to appraise. Saying this, Audiobook took out the magic ball that Captain Lu Liang had picked up earlier. "What's this?" Silyanjinren was curious. An equipment dropped after killing a phantom. Chapter 1249. In the name of testing for the bald head virus, they were in fact investigating the void creatures lurking among Earth cultivators in Huaxiu Nation. Under Audiobook and Sun Yuan's arrangements, the operation was carried out in an orderly manner. The first front line of epidemic prevention was set up all over the country, and Songhai City currently had the highest concentration of void spirits. Wang Ling saw that the number of confirmed cases was still rising. In the afternoon, there had clearly been just over 1,200 cases, but in the evening, there was already an extra zero. On the internet, people were panicking over the new bald head virus. Wang Ling glanced at the class group and saw that Super Chin, Hirogua, and a few others were openly discussing this matter. There weren't any teachers in this group, and it was a group set up by the students in class. "I heard that we'll be attending classes at school tomorrow. I wonder if it's true." "Don't be happy too early. Classes are suspended, but school isn't suspended. Old Pan will definitely give us a lot of homework. It's better if teacher stays at home now. Masks are already out of stock, you can't even buy them. There are also some people who are secretly raising the price. Shameless. It's fine if it's 1 or 2 yuan more expensive, but it's too outrageous." There were bound to be complaints. After all, the emergence of the bald virus had disrupted everyone's normal rhythm of life. It was indeed very comfortable for Wang Ling to stay at home. But this wasn't the peaceful life he wanted. So Wang Ling had already intervened. He hoped that this matter would pass as soon as possible. Based on the population of Songhai City, Book of Sage Immortal conservatively estimated that there were already no less than 100,000 void spirits lurking in Songhai City. The reason why these void spirits hiding in the dark had yet to riot was very simple. They were looking for a son of the void. Wang Ling didn't know what conditions one had to meet to become a son of the void. But right now, this was the source of all the void spirits' stability. As long as a son of the void wasn't discovered, these void creatures wouldn't cause too much of a ruckus. Can you calculate a son of the void? Wang Ling gazed at the tablet on the table. So far, they had collected the data of 2 void creatures. One was the one Wang Ying had killed in Wang Ling's mental space. The other was the one Odd Zhua and Bai Qiao had killed together. Bai Qiao had already shared that memory with Jinka, so that Wang Ling could use Book of Sage Immortal to perform the data calculations. However, it was clear that the data of the 2 void creatures was still a bit too much for Book of Sage Immortal. My lord, I can only try my best. This is my first time learning about the creatures at the gate of the void, so I don't know much. Okay. Wang Ling wanted to laugh in his heart. To be honest, he rarely saw Book of Sage Immortal being defeated. Among all the spiritual monsters that he had enlightened, only this iPad felt that it was intelligent. It often thought itself to be smart and even made decisions for him on its own. Thus, Wang Ling had long planned to send Book of Sage Immortal away. If it hadn't been for the invasion of the void this time, he would probably have sent it away by express delivery long ago. This time, the Book of Sage Immortal took a longer time to search. During this period, he also did a lot of other things. He did a set of 3-5 exercises. After he finished looking at the person he was chasing, he cast his monthly recommendation vote. He used the small amount of pocket money that Father Wang had embezzled to donate to a trustworthy charity. My lord, I've basically finished searching. Judging from the results of the search, the sons of the void that the hollow spirits are looking for are actually preparing for an invasion. There should be 2 real sons of the void. Both of them are the key to opening the gate of the void, and neither is missing, Book of Sage Immortal replied. What's the purpose of the invasion? Wang Ling asked telepathically. These hollow spirits thought they were superior to others, but wanted to invade Earth. To Wang Ling, this was unthinkable. There's a 37% chance that they want to occupy Earth. There's a 31% chance that they intend to transform Earth into a void farm to breed void creatures in batches for the hollow spirits to devour. There's a 23% chance that they want to use Earth as bait to disguise themselves as humans to lure other advanced creatures to attack Earth. They will then devour those advanced creatures in order to pursue a higher form of life. Judging from the memories of the 2 dead hollow spirits, the void creatures behind the gate believe that their current form isn't perfect, and that they can go one step further and evolve. There's a 9% chance that they want to attract the attention of the heavenly Tao. There's a less than 0.1% chance that they want to kill a certain short and mischievous author. Wang Ling, Book of Sage Immortal, but no matter what their purpose in invading is, opening the gate of the void is a crucial step that they must take. Because even the Lord of the Void doesn't have the ability to open the gate. No ability to open the gate? Lying on the ground, Loopy Toad laughed. Isn't the world behind the gate their home? Why would they dislike staying at home? Book of Sage Immortal, the world behind the gate is heaven for the hollow spirits, but after staying in heaven for too long, they'll always feel tired and want to go out in search of new stimulation. It's like the students who are stifled at home during the pandemic and look forward to the day they can start school. At home, they have to abide by the rules and regulations. Although they don't have to worry about food and clothing, they have to be careful every day. At the same time, they also have to be careful not to talk back to their elders. So going out is also a way for the hollow spirits to release themselves. This reason sounded a little real to Wang Ling. He felt that it was a portrayal of reality. Of course, everyone's thoughts were different. Some people might want to take a few more days off, while others wanted to return to school as soon as possible. But no matter what kind of thoughts they had, everyone's thoughts were the same. They hoped that this unexpected disaster would pass as soon as possible so that everyone could live a safe and healthy life. Book of Sage Immortal, in summary, according to the information we've obtained so far. Currently, there are 6 people who are most suitable to be chosen by the Arcane Church as Children of the Void. The probability of these people being chosen is 50-50. I still need more samples from the Arcane Church to verify this. Then, Book of Sage Immortal reported the following 4 names. Some of them were people he had heard of before. Gao Tianming, the captain of No. 1 Devil Subduing High School when our Lord participated in the 9 Dragon Mountain National Body Technique Competition. Jiang Xiaoche, Huaguo Water Curtain Group's Sun Yiyuan's personal secretary. Xiang Haidao, general manager of Songhai City Xiang Family Waste Recycling Technology Company Limited, Xiang Haihua's eldest son, and has a long-term partnership with Sun Yiyuan. Yi Jiang, a freshman from the Divine Sword Academy, and also the team leader of the 9 Dragon Mountain Tournament. Sword Saint Yi Jianchuan's adopted son. They're all men? Loopy Toad noticed a key point. Book of Sage Immortal, based on the information I've compiled so far, there's a high probability that both Children of the Void are men. But if we add in the probability of women, there's one person who is indeed more suspicious. Who is it? Wang Ling asked telepathically. Book of Sage Immortal, Huaguo Water Curtain Group's Sun Yiyuan's eldest granddaughter, Lotus Sunday. Chapter 1250. Book of Sage Immortal's words actually reminded him of something. A so-called son of the void might not necessarily be a man, and there was a certain probability that Lotus Sun was a son of the void. After the 9 Dragon Mountain National Body Technique Exchange competition, Lotus Sun clearly hadn't been injured, but she was still heavily protected by the corporation. According to Old Antique, she would even take a break from school to recuperate for a period of time. Perhaps Old Man Sun had already sensed that there might be something wrong with her. But for now, this was just Wang Ling's speculation. After all, based on the current rankings, Lotus Sun had the lowest probability of being a child of the void. Therefore, the most important thing now was to collect more ethereal samples so that the Book of Sage Immortal's calculations would be more accurate. Wang Ling already had a premonition that the envoys of the Foundation, who had been keeping silent behind the scenes, would soon appear one after another. After entering the spiritual space the last time, he had left a wisp of divine intent on each of the Foundation's envoys. Sure enough, as Wang Ling had expected, Su Bai was already suspecting him. Therefore, in the latest meeting, the emissary of the Fool was eliminated. Their next step in their revenge was to target Audiobook. At that moment, he looked at the peachwood sword next to his pillow. Although Bai Qiao was already in Audiobook's hands, Wang Ling felt that it would be safer to also send Jinka to Audiobook just in case. Sword Master, hearing the call in Wang Ling's heart, Jinka's sword trembled slightly. Without another word, Wang Ling looked straight in Audiobook's direction. Jinka understood, and then swiftly turned into a streak of brown light and rushed out of the window. After Jinka and Bai Qiao combined, they would become Jingbai. Wang Ling had already witnessed Jingbai's fighting strength. Even the 1,000-winged god could be killed with a single slash, let alone a mere ethereal. The truth was that Wang Ling had taken the initiative to give Jinka and Bai Qiao a chance to combine. The first time they fused, they had to adapt to each other, so the fusion time wouldn't be too long. This needed to be polished over time. Now that this second opportunity was about to come, Wang Ling felt that Jinka and Bai Qiao's combination should last a little longer. A real man would only be able to last for 24 hours. As for Lotus Sun, Wang Ling felt that it wasn't appropriate for him to personally keep an eye on them at the moment. After all, Su Bai's ultimate target was still him. Between them, there was bound to be a battle of a slap. If he went to keep an eye on Lotus Sun, Su Bai would definitely be led there. At that time, everyone in the vicinity would suffer. At that moment, Wang Ling turned his gaze to Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad got up and yawned. Got it, I'll keep an eye on it. Loopy Toad had to help. The main reason was that he felt that Wang Ling had indeed been very tired recently. His little master still had to deal with exams and homework, and he also had to worry about the people and fight against the aliens over there. It was really not easy. Elsewhere, Shanghai City's western suburbs' first epidemic prevention station command center. While Zhuo was waiting for Immortal Toya's test ball results, he also received the first list from Wang Ling. There were only 4 people on the list. Because he had already sent Lupi Toad to keep an eye on Lotus Sunday. Thus, it would be better for Zhuo to be fully in charge of the remaining 4 people, and it would be better to deploy personnel to keep an eye on them. As expected of Shifu, he was actually able to determine the approximate range of the Sons of the Void so quickly. Looking at the list, Zhuo sighed in his heart. Gao Tianming, Jiang Shaoche, Xiang Haitao, Yi Jiang. Next to him, Kun recited the 4 names on the list with a deep frown. This Yi Jiang sounds a little familiar, as if I've heard of him somewhere before. This is the adopted son of Blade Master General Yi Jianchuan. How does Mr. Kun know him? Zhuo's words were actually a test for Qion. He had already learned from Wang Ling about the relationship between Yi Jiang and the War Throne ambassador behind the foundation, Toy Dre. Zhuo wanted to test whether Kun knew anything about this. Kun's brow furrowed tightly. I once inadvertently saw this name on a file submitted by a colleague. That's right. I can't be wrong. I remember that Toy Dre, the old CEO of a multinational spirit sword manufacturing group, once commissioned our foundation to investigate this person called Yi Jiang. Hearing this, Zhuo was stunned. He secretly marveled at the boldness of this War Throne ambassador. He was clearly a Foundation's ambassador, but had taken the initiative to reveal his true identity and instead commissioned the Foundation to investigate his illegitimate son. What a good plan. Zhuo couldn't help laughing in his heart. The identities of the 7 ambassadors of the Foundation were all confidential. By doing this, the War Throne ambassador could in fact play a confusing card to conceal his identity. But Toy Dre had clearly miscalculated. He would never have thought that almost everything that happened on this earth couldn't escape the eyes of his Shifu Wang Ling's enlightened iPad. I'm very happy that Mr. Kun isn't hiding anything from me. So I've also decided to tell Mr. Kun something. At that moment, Zhuo looked at Kun and said, actually, this Toy Dre is the War Throne ambassador behind the Foundation. Kun was greatly alarmed by this news. The War Throne ambassador was actually Toy Dre. More than once, they had speculated that someone inside Huaxiao National Union might be secretly colluding with the Foundation. If Toy Dre was the War Throne ambassador, and there was a connection between him and Yi Jiang. And Yi Jiang himself was General Yi's adopted son, looking at all the evidence so far, General Yi's suspicions were very high. He's a blade master. Kun found it a little hard to believe. Even as an outsider, he felt that all this was inconceivable. I know. Zhuo nodded. This was a person who had once made great contributions to Huaxiao Nation. He had outstanding merits and was loyal, and there was almost no possibility that he would betray the Union. However, a large number of facts showed that General Yi was indeed very suspicious. We only follow the evidence and facts. At that moment, Zhuo sighed emotionally. I'm also a fan of His Excellency Blade Master. I don't believe he would do something like that. But Mr. Kun, have you ever thought that there might be another possibility? When Zhuo said this, Kun was suddenly enlightened, and his blue eyes widened in astonishment. You mean? I suspect that Blade Master might have already been invaded by the Void. Zhuo frowned deeply. This was the only reasonable explanation he could think of at the moment. But if that was the case, the situation would become very troublesome, given General Yi's own battle strength, coupled with the power of the hollow spirit in his body, he might be even more astonishing than snakes. The key was the way they had handled General Yi. Given Blade Master's realm, the hollow spirit that had invaded his body wouldn't be as easily shaken as it had been with Teacher Lu from number 60 high school. Given that he wasn't completely confident that he could force the hollow spirit out of his body, Zhuo could only think of one way. And that was kill Blade Master. Chapter 1251. Killing the Sword Saint was a decision made out of desperation, but whether or not he had the courage to carry it out was another matter. This was a matter of great importance, and Audiobook didn't dare act rashly. Furthermore, Senior Immortal from the Union had been detained, so the second wave of power in the Union was represented by Blade Master. Given Senior Immortal's strength, it was impossible for him not to have sensed General Yi's abnormality. It was likely that they were still in the middle of negotiating. At this point, the situation gradually became clear, and Audiobook now began to understand why the head of state had chosen Huagua Water Curtain Group. The fact that one of the 10 generals had been invaded by the Void was a serious matter of utmost secrecy. If the head of state had chosen to act directly, it might have exposed this matter even more quickly or even blown up. Once it got out, some unscrupulous media in the border country would exaggerate, add fuel to the fire, and create a story out of nothing, which would definitely cause a certain degree of panic. Thus, this matter could only be handled coldly by a third party. It was just that the head of state had overlooked one thing, and that was Battle's sex variable. In this silent war, Battle's sex blade had not only directly disrupted this barbed wolf inside the Union, it had also disrupted the rhythm of the entire Foundation. But the head of state didn't stop Battle's sect. The fact that Battle's sect could form an alliance with Huagua Water Curtain Group so quickly meant that it had probably received the head of state's instructions behind the scenes. This was good news. It proved that the head of state still had a positive attitude toward Battle's sect's current joint operation with Huagua Water Curtain Group. Mr. Joie, what should we do next? Seeing Audiobook frowning in thought, even if he didn't say it now, Keon could imagine the tangled web of relationships behind it. Stay here and wait for the results, Mr. Keon. Once the Magic Ball's investigation report comes out, find a way to let me know, Audiobook said as he looked at Keon. Then where are you going, Mr. Joie? My Shifu deduced that the Foundation will definitely come looking for me for revenge. I have to get out of here quickly. Because of Snake? I'm afraid so. Audiobook nodded. Judging from the information provided by Wang Ling's Shifu, the Foundation's envoys were on their way. Tonight at the earliest, tomorrow morning at the latest, the experts dispatched by the Foundation would all arrive. After saying goodbye to Snake, Audiobook returned to the place where his dream had begun. Songhai No. 60 High School. Tomorrow, all the schools in Songhai City would be closed for 3 days, and all the teaching staff would be evacuated. Now that the school was empty, it was the perfect place to fight. At that moment, Audiobook held Jinka in his left hand and Bai Qiao in his right. He sensed the immense spirit power emanating from the sword, which was like a tsunami of stars. After carefully sensing it, Audiobook actually saw the endless dazzling Milky Way ribbons, although he had only heard Shifu Wang Ling talk about it once. After experiencing it for himself, he indeed couldn't find any words to describe this enormous power. Lady Bai Qiao, sorry to trouble you. Before stepping into the teaching building, Audiobook waved his hand and Bai Qiao flew into the air. The cage of the scabbard was ready, and he would not let any of the offending enemies leave alive. Those who offend my Huaxiao nation will be punished no matter how far away they are. Then, he went to the headmaster's office and sat in Headmaster Chen's seat. Who knew if Headmaster Chen, this stingy guy, had predicted that there would be a battle at No. 60 High, but he had actually removed everything from his headmaster's office, not even leaving the water dispenser behind. Looking at the empty headmaster's office, Audiobook could only wait by the window. At around 10 o'clock in the evening, an unfamiliar aura stepped into No. 60 High from the school gate. There was an irritable smell in this aura, and Audiobook could smell gunpowder from afar. The streetlights in the school square illuminated the figure of a man. It was a man with a snow-white beard. His posture was straight and tall, and his body was burly. He was at least 2 meters tall. Toidly. Audiobook stared at the man who had suddenly appeared in No. 60 High's school square. He checked the information which Book of Sage Immortal had given him on his phone, and confirmed that the man in front of him was indeed Toidly, the War Throne emissary. At that moment, standing in the square in heavy metal armor, he looked like a Western knight. The light from the streetlights reflected off his armor, and it gave off an incomparably thick, metallic glow. As expected of the War Throne emissary. You were actually able to calculate my position. Although Audiobook had been certain from the beginning that the Foundation definitely had a way to find him, he was still a little surprised to see this War Throne emissary appear. It was the Star Emissary who calculated your position. Toydley laughed. By killing the Sun Emissary, you have offended the entire Foundation. Do you think you can get away with it? In fact, your actions are also a declaration of war against the League of Nations. Apollo was a good man, and indeed didn't deserve such a fate. Audiobook stared at Toydley and sighed. It looks like you don't know what on earth happened to Apollo. Toydley shook his head, and had no intention of listening to Audiobook's explanation. I've long heard of your reputation, but it turns out that you're not far from what I imagined. Not only is your realm low, you're only at the Golden Core stage, and you have a glib tongue that makes people laugh. I realize that the people of your Foundation speak Mandarin very well. Audiobook chuckled. All the cultivators of the League of Nations are proficient in the 8 languages, Toydley said confidently. Toydley said confidently, I used to have a lover who was a citizen of your Huaxiao nation. You should know, Mr. Toydley. The lady you're intimate with gave birth to a son for you. Audiobook stared at Toydley. He didn't intend to beat around the bush, and directly laid his cards on the table. You even investigated this foreign illegitimate child. What does that have to do with you? Toydley snorted. I'm warning you, Audiobook. This has nothing to do with me. I've done everything to ensure your safety. It's that scheming woman who wanted to cling to me. That's why this accident happened. That's right. It must have been that woman who poked a hole in my little umbrella. She was the one who seduced me. Audiobook's face gradually turned gloomy at these words. Do you know, Mr. Chariot? What I hate the most in life is people like you who shirk responsibility and don't take responsibility. Audiobook raised Jinka and pointed the tip of the sword at Toydley. You are indeed my senior in cultivation. But whether or not a person can shoulder the responsibility has nothing to do with age. Do you think you can kill me with a wooden sword? Toydley sneered. Wrong, I'm not going to kill you. Audiobook shook his head. I'm going to completely destroy you, soul and body. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.